there, and thank you very much for joining us on AM Prime this morning. I am Keaton Shah, and it's a pleasure as we can start the day with a discussion surrounding the United National Congress national executive elections, which are due to be held on June 15th. On Saturday, Rushton Parry, along with other members of the United National Congress, launched their slate, United Patriots. Mr. Parry believes that his candidates possess, and I quote, the right blend of experience and youth to build our great party, keeping with our vision of a stronger UNC for a stronger TNT. Now, since then, of course, Mr. Parry has faced criticism, and perhaps that is putting it quite lightly, from the opposition leader as well as other members of the slate that's referred to as the Star Team. Well, they had their official launch last night. We'll get into that now as I welcome Mr. Parry to AM Prime. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me this morning to share a few thoughts.
Well, let's start with your quote on your slate, the right blend of experience and youth to build our great party, keeping with our vision of a stronger UNC for a stronger TNT. Please justify that statement based on the candidates that United Patriots have put forward.
Well, based on my assessment, getting a team together to fill this void that I believe that has come about in the UNC over the last couple of years, at least under my observation. You wanted to have a team that has a blend of institutional knowledge, a bit of youth, a bit of experience. You wanted to have a good mix, male, female. You wanted to have a slate that can speak to every demographic in Trinidad and Tobago. I was particular in looking at areas that I do feel where we have to exercise some strength going into government. So, for instance, I have two very well-seasoned local government practitioners on the slate. That is Councillor Henry Awong and Councillor Jason Ali, both very well-experienced men who can assist a new leadership team in determining issues surrounding local government and the interconnection between local government and your party's infrastructure as well. So a lot of thought went into it, and I do believe that every single member of our slate has a very deep-rooted connection in the UNC. Everyone, look at the regional coordinators that I have, selected at the end of the day. They are all people with experience at the grassroots level of the party. So I do believe that we do have a good team, fresh faces, new ideas, and that must augur well for the party going forward.
What are the new ideas that your slate is proposing when it comes to a new UNC?
Well, it's not about new ideas. It's about lifting on the issues that have not been corrected over the years. So clearly there are some main areas that we want to address. And the main thing that, brought about this whole experience was the feeling of the wider membership, that there is a large disconnect between the leadership of our party and the members. When you look at the almost total collapse of every institution of the party, your most powerful group or institution in your political party is your party groups in your constituency at the constituency level. By and large, many of those organs have collapsed over the years. So that in itself leads to this disconnect, this widening of the relationship between the party and the leadership. And that's one of the main things that we want to address in terms of bringing back to life all these organs, all these institutions of the party, which have really been left to flounder over the years. Issues around constitutional reform, fixed terms for all office holders, fixed dates for elections. Now, these are things that we have been clamoring for in our national constitution, and it has relevance in our party's constitution as well. So that is another key area. You find we've been having conversations around the wider membership concerning the ability of the party to have a headquarters. I mean, that is something that has come up for a lot of conversation over the last 48 hours. When you want to move from just a political party to a political institution, those are the kind of foundation things that we must be discussing. As I said, in the UNC, we have a space for every discussion. Every member of our party who has a contribution to make towards national development must be allowed to have a say inside it. And I think we are getting to that point where the membership is really having its say, and they will have their largest say, their loudest voice on June the 15th.
Well, good intentions are certainly needed when it comes to enacting change and meaningful positive change. But do you really suppose that the slate that you've put forward will get the vote of the membership? As much as you've suggested that on previously you've spoken about on the day of the internal elections, the membership will speak, that you believe you have the backing and support of the membership. But taking a look at the list of candidates, do you really think that they have some connection, not only with the membership of the United National Congress, but a connection with people in Trinidad and Tobago as a whole?
Well, this is a relay, Keaton. And the first leg of the relay is the membership of the party. So your line and length and language is a bit different, because this is an internal election. Your scope is limited to the members of the party. So right now, the mere fact that every single person on my slate is deeply rooted and deeply connected to the membership of the party. And I'll give you an example. When you look at my coordinators at the coordinator levels, North, South, Central, East, they have vast amount of experience on the ground. Some of them are former local government representatives, candidates who have canvassed over the years. I have young Chanel Roberts. Now, while young Chanel Roberts, she's the Tobago representative, what she brings is an experience from a hometown in Labray, where she created a space for the UNC that was not previously there. Although she lost the elections, she gathered almost, she reduced the defeat by almost 800 votes. So when you take that experience that she has at that local level and her ability to work with people to create that space, I think she'll do well under our guidance in terms of being a representative for the Tobago. Now, if the UNC really wants to be a national party, we cannot leave out our sister island. We have to have a presence there. We have to have someone carrying the message and the philosophy. So I really feel, to answer your question, yes, I do think that we have an absolutely wonderful chance of connecting with the wider membership, and we have 3 weeks to get that mission completed and win the elections on June 15th.
If we also take a look at another candidate for the position of chairman of the party, that is Senior Counsel Larry Lawler. He has run previously under Dr. Rurel Munila's slate and under Vasan Bharat's slate. He's been unsuccessful on both occasions. Do you believe that him running once more under your slate for this particular position is more of a liability than anything else?
No, I think every single citizen who has a contribution to make to national development is important. And whether you run once, twice, 3 times, we have persons in our party have gone to an elections 13 and 14 times and they lost. And there is still a feeling, by many, that there is still some value at the end of the day. Mr. Lala has tremendous value in terms of a national contribution, in terms of his experience, in terms of his legal background and so on. So I do feel that his and Mr. Taklal Singh, in terms of the legal fraternity, they do bring a lot of value, and I'll tell you why that's important. The United National Congress has to prepare for government. And as we go forward into 2025 to 2030, there's a lot of international ramifications in terms of how governments operate within the legal framework, within the United Nations, within getting legislation and so on ready to have what you call, a connection between international arrangements that we are signing. When you look at the treasurer, Mr. Curtis Manchun, who brings tremendous experience, he is an FCC, is a fellow of the Certified Chartered Accountants. We have to prepare the UNC to be able to follow all the NPO, NGO laws with regards to financing and so on. As we go forward over the next 5 years, we have party headquarters to build. We have, systems to put in place. And we have to be careful how you get funds, how you spend funds, and a better structure within the legal framework of how we operate here in Trinidad and Tobago is important, because the world is going to be looking at political organizations and how you amass funding, because you have issues around terrorist financing, you have transnational organized crime. So you have to be careful. Political organizations have to be careful that they don't run afoul with this type of law. So having a treasurer with the backing and qualification and the experience like Mr. Manchun, who has sat on an executive in the UNC many, many years ago. So these, besides just the experience, they are bringing the institutional knowledge. This is why I think my team is much more solid in terms of being able to deliver a good product to the people, the membership of the party, and by extension, Trinidad and Tobago.
I want to turn your attention now to some of the commentary from the opposing slate that you're against, and that is the STAR team. There is a lot to get into from a 7-page letter that was issued over the weekend, but one of the more pertinent points on the part of Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Bissess, the senior counsel, who is the political leader of the UNC, when you said that you would be delivering plans for the political party soon, and I quote from her, she says, "I know that despite having been a UNC MP for the past 9 years, you have consistently failed to offer anything constructive to the development of the UNC throughout your tenure," end quote. Please respond to this, because the point is, have you done enough to position yourself really as someone who has built the party or who has tried to strengthen the institution that is UNC since becoming a member of parliament?
Since becoming a member of parliament, I have done every single thing that is possible to uplift and build the UNC, the constituency that I represent. Remember, I brought a constituency back from virtual collapse in 2015. Now, I am not here to argue personalities. At the end of the day, anybody could have a view. But what are you measuring me against? Are you measuring me against any particular MP in terms of their work, in terms of their contribution to the party? I don't think I've contributed any less than any other member of the party. But that's a personal view. What I can tell you, that if when I was screened in 2020, that was an issue, I don't think I would have been selected. So, I think it borders a bit on hypocritical to make that type of statement. But I can tell you this as well. I remain a committed member of the United National Congress. I have the best interests of the United National Congress. And I still believe, up to today, the United National Congress is still the best vehicle to take us to government in 2025. Mm-hmm. This is politics at the end of the day. I can tell you that, the UNC has to make space for the good, the bad, and the mad. And at the end of the day, I do believe that every single person in the UNC, and we have to understand this thing about equity as well, every single member who dons that yellow shirt and who loaded a maxi to go to that very same lunch last night, that is the equity, that is their contribution to the party. Whatever small it is, turning up at a rally, turning up at a function, making a contribution in the parliament. So I have to ask the question, I have debated 70 bills in the parliament in 8.5 years. Wasn't that part of building the UNC? I've sat on several joint select committees. Isn't that part of building the UNC as well? I've contributed to the building that we're in. Paint, infrastructure. Every single member of parliament gives almost $2,000 a month of their what you call your salary in the parliament for 9 years. So I don't know if those things count, and nobody has advised me that those things don't count. And I can tell you, under the leadership of the United Patriots, every single drop of sweat by every single member will be valuable in the United National Congress going forward. There'll be no VIP. Every single member of the UNC will sit in the penthouse of the UNC. That is how I see it.
Further to this, the opposition leader last night at the Cuba Multipurpose Hall, she urged members to elect the star team. She says we can only win the 2025 general elections if we have a national executive that works with a duly elected leader. There's more to that quotation, but that point in particular, Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar in her letter also noted that she was rather surprised that you were willing to work with her. That being said, the position for political leader, we know for a while now, is not up for contention. However, again, I go back to a question that I asked you approximately 1 month ago. In your opinion, with all that has been said over the last month, with all that has been suggested this morning, in your opinion, is Kamla Prasad-Bissessar the right individual to lead the United National Congress into 2025? Because in all honesty, she is clearly a part of the problem based on what you've described of the UNC being a very weak party currently.
Decisions, leadership decisions, is what creates the space for you to move forward. We have a duly elected political leader, and the leadership, the political leadership is not up for election. That's a fact. However, the function of your national executive is to keep leaders in check. While Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar ought not to have made some sort of endorsement of any slate, right? But there's nothing wrong, there's nothing constitutionally wrong. I think it borderlines on being probably not very ethical to do. Because when you go down that road, it means that you've created a space where you have control over your board of governance who's supposed to keep you in check. Now, that being said, whether any political leader endorses any slate or not, that is one vote. The membership consists of 100,000 people, of which probably 25,000 may vote on June 15th. And it is the voice of the wider membership that is going to make any decision on who goes forward and who doesn't go forward. What I can tell you, and that's what I indicated to Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar as well, that when my slate wins, or the slate that I lead wins on June 15th, I will do, or we will do, our best to continue working with her. Now, whatever conversation that, Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar is having right now, she's free to have that. She's the leader of the party, and I will always respect the right of anybody to say anything. But you see, the difference with me, Keaton, is that I am not in the business of chastising personalities. I am in the business of fixing issues and problems and process. That is what I do. I don't chastise individuals. You would have listened our campaign from day one, from the first day that I made a particular statement on the issues we were having in the party. Not one day have I chastised a person. At the end of the day, I spoke about the party processes that have been broken, where it is delinking the membership from what is expected, and the slate, the United Patriots, our vision and mission and goal is to fix those broken processes, fix those broken institutions, and give every member a chance to participate in nation building. And I stand fast and firm on that.
Should you be unsuccessful on June 15th, what does that suggest for your political career within the United National Congress, as well as others who are currently members of Parliament who have also actually put forward their nomination papers for general election 2025? You've done the same. Anita Haynes-Alleyne has done the same. Rai Ragbir has done the same. What does this suggest for their political futures within the United National Congress? Should you not be successful on June 15th, do you expect to be welcomed with open arms?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of what goes on in the mind of any person, much less so for other MPs. What I can tell you is that if I am not successful, I will continue to be the MP until Parliament is dissolved. But more importantly, I really don't worry about these things, you know. You know, my biggest concern is about the constituents in my area here, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm concerned that the PNM, with a very weak UNC, is going to walk and trounce all over us in the general elections. I am concerned about young people. I'm concerned about the 6,000 businesses that has collapsed over the last few years. I'm concerned about the 80,000 unemployed people in this country. I'm concerned about extortion of businessmen today that the TTPS seems not to be able to get a hold on. I'm concerned about the collapse in infrastructure under the PNM. I'm concerned this morning that there are 14 communities in Mayaro without water. That is what is of concern to me. Whatever happens after June the 15th, to me, is irrelevant at this time.
Mm-hmm. Now, finally, to raise another point, and this has been circulating within recent times, and that is the thought or the suggestions that there may be some sort of alliance between yourself, and when I say yourself, whether it be your slate or whether you'd be leading the United National Congress at that point, and Michaela Pandey's party, the Patriotic Front. The suggestions are that an alliance with Rushton Parry can propel the United National Congress, even worry the opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Have there been any conversations at all between yourself and Miss Michaela Pandey over such alliance being formed?
I've known Michaela for quite some time. She's a wonderful young lady. When we do meet, we speak about family. Our families have been connected for many, many years. We speak on a lot of things. But I want to talk to you about, you know, relationships in politics and the way I see it in the United National Congress. If there is the slightest crack where any citizen, whether you're an individual, whether you're a political party, willing to make a contribution, and I want to get that solidly down for your viewers and listeners. In this country, every single person who has a contribution to national unity, national development, you must be welcomed. Whether you come from Mayaro, Cedar, Charlottesville, Erin, Ikakas, you know, we have to make a space for everybody because that is how we win. You know, because Trinidad and Tobago, we're in a really bad space. The PNM has really collapsed this country in every sector. And it is going to take more than 18 or 20 men in the parliament to solve this problem. And I want to make this point. You know, I spoke early on about the party has gotten to a place where we've lost our gravitational pull to bring new people, new faces, fresh ideas. And the mere fact that the star team lacks anything new, it really justifies my position, right? I mean, my team has gotten together. It's a bunch of, you know, in terms of new, young, old, it's a good mix. It's people with new and fresh ideas. And, you know, as the campaign goes on over the next 3 weeks, we will articulate some of those things. So, I mean, coming back to whether there is always room for a relationship with everybody, in NATEX, under the United Patriots, will have the widest possible berth for every single citizen to participate in nation building.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Parry, listen, at this point, I'm going to conclude this particular conversation. I've asked you your plans in respect to the party and building the United National Congress. You have hinted at some. You have not necessarily laid all your cards on the table. But over the course of the campaign, over the course of the next 3 weeks, when more information comes out, I look forward to welcoming you, as well as other members of your slate, to the program to speak more about their plans, visions, and intentions for the United National Congress. At this point, though, thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All the very best. Take care. We would also welcome, of course, members of the STAR team to join in. And members of the STAR team, by the way, currently make up the majority of the National Executive on the United National Congress, but certainly we will welcome them to the program to speak more about their plans for the United National Congress heading into 2025 and beyond. At this point, though, ladies and gentlemen, we take a break, shifting gears a bit as we speak about opportunities for all here in TNT. And when we return, and I welcome my second guest. We'll be right back after this.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN Content Capital.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. It seems as though, even though I'm awake, my voice is still waking up. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue with this morning's edition of AM Prime, I'm pleased to welcome my next guest, who contributed and may I say, made such very many pertinent points. There's one in particular of which I'm going to start the conversation with. But they contributed to a national conversation series that looked at forex earning potential of TNT's Carnival. Ms. Denise Deming is here this morning in studio as we look to dissect and analyze her contribution during this conversation. Hello, Ms. Deming. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much for inviting me, because I write a lot of stuff because at this stage of my life, all I can do is give you my opinion. So I write a lot of stuff, share my opinion, in the hope that something will transform.
Well, one of the opinions that you have shared with the public in looking at TNT's potential for Carnival, which, if I may say so, I don't think we've fully reached that potential as yet. You've pointed out the distinction between the product that is Carnival and the experience that is Carnival. There doesn't seem to be that cohesion in terms of thinking. It seems to be just one thing. Carnival is Carnival, we'll celebrate, we'll rave, that's it. But you've pointed out it is very, very important to note that distinction. But please explain why, in your opinion, it is.
From a marketing perspective, there's a distinction between what the product is and what the experience is. And in most instances, what Trinidad needs to do is to figure out what is the Carnival product. Now, I know that that is a triggering thing for some historians, that they don't see Carnival as a product. They see it as wheating and so on, which is fine. All of that is lovely. It has its great history. A lot of people can remember all the things about Carnival, the various aspects of Carnival. But if we are going to make Carnival into something that somebody else wants to be part of, we have to identify the product. And to me, the Carnival has several products within it. But the major product is, how do we attract people to the country to have an experience? And that experience begins when they make the decision that they're coming. So it's not just the experience of jumping up on a band on Carnival Day. It is the full experience from the time you think about it, and then you invest some money in it, and then you decide to come here. You can't arrive in Trinidad and the experience is to fill out a piece of paper. That triggers me every time I travel. And you know, I can't think of another country. I don't travel the entire world, but I can't think of another country where you're still filling out this piece of paper. So the experience begins there. And it may trigger some people. Then the continuation of the experience is they spend another hour to get their luggage. You know, or sometimes you get the luggage quickly, but you can't come out because every person is assessed by customs. So that the experience, by the time you get out to get into transportation, you're vexed. You're either vexed, frustrated, or in some cases, you've been given a drink for Carnival, you know. We do this nice giving people drinks in the airport and so on. So, okay, they're a little, you know, so they don't feel that experience. But then they get home and they reflect on it and they say, but wait, it took me 2 hours from the time the plane landed to when I you know, came out of the airport. So the experience is extremely important.
Do you think that, please excuse me, that people coming to Trinidad would necessarily see these things as an issue, or rather a part of it all? You know, I have to speak plainly. Third world country, third world thinking, third world workings, that this is how we operate. Do you think that in itself is part of the product?
No, it's not. During COVID, the Prime Minister talked about 300,000 passports abroad. So we have a target audience of people who would love to come home sometimes, okay? When they come home, they're going to do the comparison between when they left that first world country and when they arrived in this third world country. And for me, we have to move away from that negative experience again of a third world country. Okay, so that's how a third world country does it. We have to move away from that. Our people deserve a more high quality experience in everything that we do. So the distinction between the first world and the third world country is something that I don't associate with at all, because I think I am an equal human. And we in Trinidad are equal humans to anybody. So don't tell me about your development and my underdevelopment. You know, because a lot of my underdevelopment is because of you. When you came here and you used us to generate your income, and then you suggested to us that we could get independence. And when we got independence, we now are at a stage where we have to transform what we have into something that makes each citizen proud and happy and want to be here. You really triggered me, you know.
That's a good thing. Brings out the best in interviews. Okay, I hear you. So then, when you speak about a structure for Carnival, which was the main theme, it seems, during this entire conversation, that the need for a structure. Exactly whom or who is responsible for actually creating and implementing this structure?
It's the government. The government has to create and implement a structure. And you may say to yourself, okay, the government can't do this, government can't do that. No. The government is investing in Carnival. There was a headline in which the former Gypsy said that $147 million was not enough, that he needed about $200 million for Carnival. So that is our investment. If you're going to invest $200 million, you need to be able to tell me as a citizen, is there an ROI? Is there a return on that investment? If not, why are we doing this? If that was a private sector organization and you offered to a private sector individual, you have $200 million, and would they say to you, well, you're not going to get any ROI on that. That's only an investment in the Carnival. So to me, we are spending at least $200 million, and if you dig a little deeper, we're spending far more than that. If we're spending that, we need to be very clear on the structure, the system, the process. We need to know what we are doing. You may not get an ROI, you may not get any return on the investment because of how difficult it is, but at least we need to know that. Right now, all we know is that government allocates money to Carnival, and that's that.
Do you think that it should be more private sector led?
I think it should be. Yes, I think it should be more private sector led, but I think there has to be a combination of private sector and the government, because it is the government, not the government, it is the people who work in the public service who understand their systems. The private sector, if there can be collaboration between the private sector and the public service, I think we will end up with something that is far better than what we have now.
But clearly the public service has not necessarily done all that they can do.
Now you're raising an issue of the transformation of the public service. Our public servants, I think the majority of them want to make a contribution. They want to work. But if the structures around them do not facilitate them working, then it's going to be what it is now. And that only happens when leadership makes decisions that says, okay, I am part of the leadership, therefore this is the objective, this is the goal, this is the strategy that we are going to implement, these are the tactics that we have to implement. I am not seeing that in our country in any way, and that is sad. What is the goal? If you know what the goal is, then you can go down and say that this is the strategy, and then you can say this is the tactic. But that is not happening. And Carnival, I don't think there's a goal for Carnival, except it's going to happen.
Well, that really seems to be the attitude. We have to maintain the experience for people. We have to ensure that Carnival happens on Monday and Tuesday. So whatever we can put into it, we will. But you're right, I will agree with you. There doesn't seem to be a concentrated effort to actually deliver a product that could be something global. They speak about it being one of the greatest parties in the world, yet currently as we are speaking, there is another article that suggests that we should be even looking at Toronto's Carnival as more opportunity. Is it because TNT's Carnival is not providing enough opportunity?
Well, it's not providing. What I think that happens with Carnival is that all the people who are involved in the bands, the calypsonians, the singers, and all of that, they all have a full template of the things that they will be doing immediately after Carnival. Mm-hmm. So they know the next Carnival they're going to, what they're going to do, and the next Carnival, what they're going to do, and so on. Now, you mentioned Toronto's Carnival. There's a difference between Toronto and Trinidad. Toronto is a structured, organized place. So they know where the Carnival is going to be. They know exactly where it's going to go down the street. That street is going to come back up, and by 10 o'clock, it's going to be done. In Trinidad, we don't have that. We don't have a structured approach. You know, many times we've had people say, done studies. Dr. Ray Furlong has done a study on how we could change the way the bands, the way the bands go to the Queen's Park Savannah. We now have another set of bands who go in the stadium. That's a different, and they're now ignoring the Queen's Park Savannah.
Yes.
So we don't have a structure that I am able to say, well, all right, I can meet my band on Arapita Avenue because by 10 o'clock they will be there. And don't tell me we can't do it, because there are apps that can help you to do that.
Well, a lot of people rely on these apps, sir. Where's the band? Hold on, and I'll tell you exactly where it is. But I want to take you back to a contribution that you made through a column in 2020. It's entitled, "What If Tribe Ran the Country?" Right? And the column speaks a lot to many of the points that you've raised this morning. Your messaging has been consistent. But you asked a question. Well, not necessarily asked a question. I'm asking the question. The statement you made is, if I had the opportunity to dream differently, then there are several persons who deliver carnival products whom I would engage to impact our systems. I'm asking you the question now, who are those persons?
People like
Tribe. Who were those persons?
People like Tribe. Tribe has been phenomenal in this country. Have we sat and spoken to them and said, you know, what has made you so successful? We criticize them. There are a number of people who I know who criticize them and say, okay, China is making our costumes now. All they're doing is foreign exchange is going out, and when they get paid for the foreign exchange by people who are coming in, they don't bring the foreign exchange back in, and so on. People say those kinds of things. But the point is that they have transformed Carnival from when it used to be, all the costumes used to be made locally. That was a time in my life. I remember playing with Home Team, and I remember making costumes with Home Team because I couldn't afford the costume, and I got a costume because I worked in making the costumes for about 3 weeks. So the Tribe has transformed that from that to we get it from China. What is the possibility of us, our seamstresses, our designers, making those costumes here? We'll still have to import some of the raw materials, but what's that possibility? So when I say that, when I speak about Tribe, all I'm acknowledging is the success that they've had, and I'm asking the question, can we think through, if we got the people who are involved in Tribe to collaborate, what could be the result? And we're not doing that, you know, so.
Beyond just Tribe in particular, other individuals, you made the comment earlier during this interview, you're not seeing that leadership, you're not seeing that effort, but whom in your eyes are the leaders that are the ones who should be leading Carnival?
If I was in the government, I would look at every band that is successful, and I mean really successful, because there are some of them who, they're not very successful, and I would form some kind of consultation with them for us to rethink Carnival and ask ourselves, what do we need to do to change and transform Carnival into a product that has a high audience and has a high level of interest in it? So I wouldn't, right now, I would say, let's look at let's try and get the data, who's being very successful, and get those people involved.
Speaking of data, we do not have any data collection, especially when it comes to Carnival. And you've made the point, what is the return on investment for $147 million? We never get an idea of what the return on investment is. This lack of data collection, or lack of effort for data collection, is that a major part of the issue, or is it just something that we could afford to say, hold up, that'll come in time?
You're asking a very complicated question there. Data in this country is difficult to get. So let's start with that. So if you can't get general data in this country for normal things, you know, Carnival data, according to both Dr. Nurse and Dr. Watson, Carnival data is not a simple thing to put together. So what we need to be doing is, again, if I were in the government, I would ensure that there is some kind of investment in the data collection so that we understand what it is. One of the things that Dr. Watson had said is that he doesn't think that Carnival has the potential to really earn foreign exchange, okay? And he's an economist, I am not, so I accept that. But instead of telling me it doesn't have the potential, where's the data? So I think the government should really be investing in that data collection so they know what it is. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. That was Peter Drucker many, many years ago. So if we're not measuring things in this country, we're not managing it because we don't know what we measure. We don't know it.
I like your point. Don't just make a statement to me about the experience. Tell me more about the data and how I can improve the product. I very much like it. Ms. Deming, as we come to the end of this interview, as we're reaching that point, in terms of Carnival, do you see us really continuing down this streak? I mean, these conversations happen all the time. Well, this is not necessarily something new. Do you feel as though your efforts are in vain?
I'm an optimist. I'm a glass half full person. So I believe, I really believe that our country is at the brink of transformation. And I really believe that citizens will continue to be involved and they will continue to demand that we transform the foolishness that we're doing now.
That transformation that you speak of, is it forced? Is it being forced?
I think it's happening because all of us want to do better. We are in such a horrible state with crime that I have to do something. So what I have to do, I can only impact my little circle. So I'm trying my best in my little circle. And I think a lot more citizens are taking that as an approach. You know, that I need, this is my place. It's a beautiful place. What can I do? Okay, what I can do is I will do the plastics and I will find somewhere to put the plastics in. I get vexed with the plastics, right? So people, I think, are beginning to understand that we have to make a contribution and we have to make a difference. If the leaders don't see it, we can change them.
Ms. Deming, I look forward to your next column and your next contribution. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
All the very best. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime. We will return shortly.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. You don't need. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we're exploiting the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
we are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of have a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
The ICC Men's T20 World Cup kicks off this Saturday. West Indies play their first game on Sunday. But the squad that has been selected by the West Indies, according to Desmond Haynes, he says, we fully believe this team is going to win the T20 World Cup. Now, that being said, West Indies did very well in that clean sweep of that series, that T20 warm-up series against South Africa. Some of the results were a bit tight at times, but that last game on Sunday in particular really proved to be quite exciting. I'm joined this morning, as I said, when he walked into the studio, I had to borrow him from Andrew Elbertis, and he has so kindly agreed to be on AM Prime. A different time, huh? He's usually on from 3 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. Lester Cassimy is with me. Sure. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program.
Morning to you, sir. Morning.
I'm going to start by actually looking at the squad that has been selected. Jason Holder is out. Jason Holder is out of the tournament. Shamar Joseph is in. Rovman Powell is the captain. Alzari Joseph is the vice captain. I could call all the names for you, and we don't have to do that. But what is your overall thoughts on the squad that has been selected?
Okay. I am definitely of the view that Desmond Haynes and his boys, they did a really good job. They did a very, very good job. I myself might not be able to do it as good as they did. But Desmond is one who everybody wants to bar talk, and I eventually on one of these programs suggested that he should be sent home. And I hope he is, because Desmond has been very disrespectful. That's a fact. Certainly to the way he has treated Bravo. He's been very, very disrespectful. But when I look at the squad, I have to admit that a squad is 15. I'm seeing some solid players here, very, very good players. Not very good players, actually, some good players. And they did their best, and this is what we have. This is what we have available in the Caribbean. But everybody could find somebody else, but it's just another good player. And let me tell you exactly what I mean by a good player.
You said very good player, now you're saying good player.
Turn it back, right, I turned back that, I pulled that back. Because we have only about 3 or 4 very good players. And we have, the rest of them, they're good players. Good players don't play for the West Indies, generally. Good players play for Trinidad, they play for Barbados and so on. But because we don't have what we used to have, 1975, 1979, 1983, we don't have those players anymore. So we have to settle now for good players to make up the squad. And Desmond Haynes and they tried their best, and this is what we have. For instance, we have Jason Holder. He's jumping out, or he has jumped out, and then we replaced him with Obey McCoy. McCoy is a good player. Frightens me sometimes for someone who the IPL was dependent on at one point in time. Too many full tosses coming down to the end, which is really his area. Too many full tosses, and he goes for a lot of runs, and he's almost always injured.
Well, for a left-handed pace bowler, it really does. Now, not only is it the full tosses, wides that he also bowls.
Why is it?
Wides. He bowls a lot of wides. He's consistent in bowling wides.
Yeah, you just try to understand if these are the guys that we are going to be dependent on, how is it we cannot depend on them? Yes, you can bowl a wide. Yes, you can bowl full tosses, but one per match, not 5 and 6 in a spell, and they do it consistently. But that's what we have available. So he has been blessed. So he has been allowed to come back in. But really and truly, he was in the right place where he was. I have a little issue with Ralston Chase. Consistently, he has been one who's just a very average player. But he went with the West Indies A team to Nepal. He did well. He did well against South Africa. Should we be dropping him?
Do you think he's proven himself as a T20 player?
That's where I am at with him. I'm not sure. I'm not sure with Ralston Chase at all. He cannot pass a physical. If you can't pass a physical and you're not even 190 pounds, you're about 6'2", 6'3", and you can't pass a medical, what are you saying? You're not interested in the game, or you're so unfit that you cannot be fit enough to pass a medical, and everybody, even old Bravo, could pass a physical. So it means that you're not actually very serious. Shai Hope is our best player, our best batsman. And he's suffering now, he's struggling. So we hope that somehow or the other he would be able to come back and do his thing, because the last CPL, he was the star batsman for the last CPL. So we hope that he would come through. The captain against South Africa, that is from Jamaica.
Joseph. No, Alzheimer Joseph is the vice captain.
He's the vice captain. The captain against South Africa, the last series that we played, the Jamaican is...
Robman Powell?
No, he's the real captain.
Yeah. Well,
so
I don't recall.
He's the opening batsman.
You've got Brandon King.
Brandon King was the captain against South Africa. He has turned out to be now probably our best batsman.
I think so. I think when you just said that Shai Hope is our best batsman,
yeah, has been.
I will agree with you that in the last CPL he was excellent, but Brandon King at least has been consistent.
He has been consistent, but overall, over the years, it was a toss-up between Bravo and Shai Hope. Bravo was summarily dismissed, so Shai Hope assumed that position. Hence the reason he was in India, and he flattered to deceive in India. He was horrible in India, actually. So I hope he does not take that form into the World Cup.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on Shimron Hetmyer versus Kyle Myers.
Right. I believe it or not, I believe in Shimron Hetmyer as someone who can close. I believe in Hetmyer, someone who can take the pressure for West Indies.
We have two different opinions on Hetmyer.
Yeah, and that's all right. But Hetmyer is a dodo. He somehow he's able to do a lot of stupidness.
Okay, now we see eye to eye.
Yeah. He's consistently doing a whole set of stupidness. But you see, when it comes to batting, Hetmyer can get you out of a hole if you're in a hole, or he could complete a game for you. He's a finisher, and that's what you need. You ask about Myers. I've been looking at Myers for a while now, and I get the impression that he is shying away from fast bowlers. I looked at him against South Africa, and he was ruffled. The very next ball he hit it for 6. Yes, but he's one of those guys who I don't have that confidence in, who can withstand serious pace. The majority of guys, they're able to do it, and he's not able to do it.
But if we look hold on, if we look at the last 2 CPLs with Kyle Myers opening, and even at times for the West Indies, he has laid a platform for Barbados, and he has also laid a platform many a times for West Indies as an opening batsman.
And so you didn't understand what I'm saying, because who's bowling pace in the West Indies? There's nobody bowling pace in the West Indies. When he was in India, you're talking about pace. You understand? When this World Cup here is pace. You understand? And then you will see him shying away. I've actually seen him, trying to get out of I mean, there are ways that you run. You don't run like you used to run a long time. The tailenders, they run so you could see them. The other guys, they run in a different way. They run in a different direction. But Kyle Myers brings something else to the table. He's also a very good swing bowler. So, and again too, Kyle Myers is from Barbados. And everybody from Barbados, including the Prime Minister, has a good chance to play for the West Indies once Desmond Haynes is the captain, was the coach, was the selector. That's a fact, you know. There's no joke. And hence the reason I didn't say it, Oral Sanchez is there, but that's a squad of 15. So once I'm surprised that Adams, the former Prime Minister of Barbados, he's dead. He's not even selected as well for Barbados, for the West Indies. Because with Desmond Haynes, it's like any... No, it's unfortunate, but it's the truth.
Lester, oh gosh.
I'm just being ridiculous.
No, but you know, at the same time, all right, Shamar Joseph did very well against Australia, made an impact against Australia in that test series. But now he's been brought up to this T20. He had one game, I think it was on Saturday. He bowled one over. He went for what, 20, 21 runs or something like that, right? But Shamar Joseph in this squad, do you see him being on the starting 11?
He's in the squad. Don't forget, in the IPL, just concluded, his first over, he went for 22. First over, he went for 22, and then he came back, and he was able to redeem himself a little. But what I want is what they're actually doing. They're keeping him in the squad. They're not necessarily going to bowl him, but he's in the squad. And I'm happy for that. Because, as I said, you're not going to play all 15. You're not going to play all 15, necessarily. But he's there and thereabout, and he's going to learn. And what you want him is to learn, because the next World Cup is when you probably would need him.
And of course, you've got the established players in Powell, in Joseph, and Nicholas Puran. Those are the players that are needed. But I want to come back to what you said earlier, very good players versus good players. You only said we have about 2 or 3 very good players.
Yes, they only have.
Well, who are those 2 or 3 players?
Puran is one. Powell is also a very good player.
When he's ready.
But Powell is not a thinker. Now, hear the story. Powell is not a thinker as far as I'm concerned. He does not appear to be a thinker. Who's the captain of the West Indies team?
Powell.
A non-thinker. So we're in trouble. We are in trouble. So Hetmeyer is also a very good player, but is unable to think consistently, which is what we talk about. He's able to do all sort of nonsense consistently.
So who should have captained the West Indies squad then?
Well,
Puran gave it up, remember that?
I'm not interested in who's going to be the West Indies captain, because at the end of the day, he's going to be dismissed. Because the team is not necessarily the best team. And you hear Desmond Haynes says that we are going to win the World Cup. Wow, we're going to win the World Cup. Why? It's because it's going to be played in the Caribbean? I don't think that's how it works. And if we do get into one of the knockout stages, we have done very, very well. We have to remember consistently, we have not been even considered for the World Cups, because we had to be in the minions and playing against those teams, because we in the Caribbean have consistently not been able to hold our own. We have not been.
All right, so before we even get to the group, so I want to ask you, if you had the opportunity, because by the way, we didn't even get into the spin bowling and Akil Hossain and Gurnekesh Moti. Moti, I'm fine with Moti being there. You know, I'm fine with Hussain being there. Hussain seems to be our first choice when it comes to T20 spin bowling. But if you had the opportunity, would you take out anyone from this squad and replace them with a different player? This, by the way, in light of you saying that how you think Desmond Haynes picked the best possible squad.
Yeah, this is why it's so difficult. That's why I really give him a lot of kudos for picking who I consider some of the definitely the best players. You give men the opportunity to be in the squad for the next year, for the next 4 years, and you pick a lot of guys who should be playing. But another guy or another group of persons can come up with another set of names, except for Puran and Johnson Charles. Now, what we're not talking about is, why is Johnson Charles there? Well, Johnson Charles is there, one, because he has been performing, but Johnson Charles was discarded because they had Lewis from Trinidad. We're forgetting Lewis.
Evan Lewis.
Why is Evan Lewis not there? Evan Lewis is not there because he chose to not be there. It's rather unfortunate. We have 2 guys from Trinidad on this team. Trinidad has been leading T20 island in the Caribbean. We have 2. Think about it. Because Lewis should be there, but Lewis is always injured himself. He's always injured. And or something else is wrong with him and he's not playing. But Lewis is definitely a shoo-in and should always be, certainly within the next 5 years or so, be on a West Indies team. He's not there.
Well, if he's consistent with his fitness and if
he's not
fit
enough, he's not scoring enough runs, and hence the reason I am giving Desmond Haynes and there a lot of credit.
Johnson Charles is there by virtue of Evan Lewis stepping out?
That's right.
You don't think Johnson Charles has proven himself as being good enough?
On merit?
Yes, in terms of merit.
If Evan Lewis was there, he would have been performing the way he was performing before. Then Johnson Charles would have been performing as he has, but he would not have been considered. Because Evan Lewis is by far a better batsman than Johnson Charles. And except you want Johnson Charles to wicket keep, then Evan Lewis is on the outfield. It's much better on the outfield than Johnson Charles. So based on that, then Evan Lewis, and by the way, Evan Lewis should not just be playing T20, he should be playing the other two formats of the game.
Think Evan Lewis is a test batsman? I mean,
yeah, I think he can be. I think he can be, sure. Evan Lewis is a talent, you know. He's a real talent, as is the case with Shai Hope. Shai Hope has decided to play white ball cricket. We need to find a way to compensate these guys to play test cricket, because we have been compensating them for playing white ball, and so they gravitate towards white ball, but it's not in our best interest. We're playing a lot of rookie guys because they'll start off playing test cricket and come down, whereas everybody else start with T20 and come up. That's not what's happening here.
We in the Caribbean, we focus a lot more on T20 than anything
else.
Yes.
Yes. Well, because Trinidad has been so successful, we have been sending a whole set of guys out to the IPL and all over the world, and so now everybody has followed that, and Trinidad and Tobago has fallen flat now.
You think we're going to miss Narain? You think this squad is going to miss Narain? Think he's a big loss?
Listen, Narain just won MVP in the IPL, in the tournament that is considered the premier tournament in the world. It's even probably considered more than a World Cup. One can say that.
Yes.
And he has just been voted, and more than one vote he has had as a all-round player, and certainly as a bowler. Narain is feared all over the world. Whether or not he will go into the World Cup and they will not call him no ball, that's another story. There's another story, and that might be a fear that one could harbor.
The history of Narain and the ICC.
Pardon?
The history of Narain and the ICC.
Yes. All those tournaments that are run by ICC, they're a little more stringent, I suppose, and they might want to call him, because I've heard one of the New Zealand commentators are suggesting that Narain is actually gone back. He has gone back to his old ways. I don't know. I'm not qualified to talk about someone's ability to pelt or not pelt, or we call it train. So I don't know, but Narain has to protect himself. But West Indies or any team in the world would like to have Narain. Narain is an excellent player. He's one of those players who is not a good player. He's not a good player. He's a very, very good player. And so we'd have been glad to have him.
Certainly good to see him batting during the IPL, though.
Pardon?
Certainly good to see him batting during the IPL.
Oh, I enjoyed him, actually. Yeah. I enjoyed watching him in the IPL. I'm surprised, actually. But then I have to go back to win ball, and you know, he kind of relished win ball, and he's done well in win ball, and I mean, they gave him the opportunity to Lego some VUP, and he VUP better than everybody. He VUP better than everybody.
That's the thing with Narain, boy. You see, I'm nervous with Narain opening.
Yeah, I'm still nervous that, you know, these guys are bowling real hard, and he's not running. He's not running.
No, he never has been.
He's not doing a Kyle Myers.
No.
He ain't running. But I'm just happy to see that he came out successful for the whole 2 months. He was successful. I'm very, very happy for him. But West Indies, he don't feel that we need him, or he don't feel that he needs the West Indies, because we have treated him poorly, you know. Let's understand that. So the chickens have come home to roost. We have treated him poorly, as we have treated all of our good players, excellent players over the years, all, including Desmond Haynes. And you would think that because of that, he would have now not be treating people poorly, but he is doing it.
I'm moving forward now, Lester, because of the time. I want to look at the groups, and I'm looking at West Indies Group C: New Zealand, Afghanistan, Papua New Guinea, and Uganda. West Indies in this group, how do you think they'll fare?
Well, West Indies, we hope will come out of the group. This is one.
You didn't even say top the group, but you say come out the group.
Yes. Yeah.
The biggest threat, of course, be New Zealand and Afghanistan.
Well, there are only two threats. But West Indies could lose to one of the other guys.
Is West Indies, everyone's a threat. Not being pessimistic, I'm a
But
man
just
alone,
yeah,
but you know.
All of them, all is a threat. We just surprisingly beat South Africa for the first time. We have beaten South Africa, and on one occasion we beat them by 28 runs. That's the first time with such a big lead. And so they have been consistent, but we haven't been. They played with almost their best team. One man was missing, that's Magram. We had a whole set of guys out in the IPL, a few guys anyway. So, but I don't trust the West Indies. I don't know where Desmanians got this thing that he could try to fool himself or try to fool me. But if we get into the group stage or out of the group stage and into semi-finals and so on, we have done well. We have done well. And even if we worse than that, if we were to actually win, that is like, wow. Because I'm telling you, Australia, India, New Zealand, those are compact teams.
Yep. How does India and Pakistan always end up in the same group? They always end up in the same group.
Well, that's good for ratings. Good for ratings.
Okay, so who's your favorite to win this tournament?
Australia, of course.
Australia.
There is something about Australia that is rather unfortunate for us. They never fought any wars, but they fight like teams that were in wars. You know, like Afghanistan in the years to come, they will be beating people because they have experienced war. England have been experiencing war. And by the way, England is also one of the teams that we have to look out for. Pakistan and India always fighting war. So countries that you see fight war that have gone through a certain level of stress, major kind of stress, they bring it into the area of sport. But Australia is the best sporting small country in the world. They're into football, hockey, cricket, swimming, everything.
That's a debatable.
No, small country. Oh. They're 20-something million. When you're talking about America is 390 million, and Brazil is 390 million. Those are big countries. But you're talking about small country, you can't get better than Australia. There's a dogmatic way they deal with things. So I don't trust them at all. Even when they're losing, a man scored 200 in the last World Cup, if you remember that. On 1 foot, or probably half a foot. Yes. A man scored 200. That's almost impossible in the semi-finals, and the rest was history after that. They just have this thing that a lot of people don't have. India, they flatter to deceive far too often, even though they might have the best team, the best squad. And India can afford to have the best squad because India, as opposed to Pakistan, you're talking 1.4 billion people. And so they can play 3 teams in the World Cup and beat people. 3. So I don't trust Australia because they're but there's a little country. The smallest representative country is New Zealand. I thought we would have been the West Indies, 5.6 million, 5.5 million. It's New Zealand, 4.4 million. And they don't stop. Every year they turn around, they just keep churning out very, very good players. Batting, bowling, and fielding. Batting, bowling, and fielding. It used to be batting, bowling, now it's all 3 areas, most of them. Everybody could bat, bowl, and field.
What about players to look out for in this World Cup?
Say that again?
Players to look out for in this particular tournament.
Well, on top of the list, of course, is from India, Sharma. On top of the list is Kohli. On top of the list is the fast bowler, what's his name? The top fast bowler in the world from India.
Slips my mind as well right now.
Right, but I'll get it.
And then what about from, you just said Markram was in South Africa. He's crucial to South Africa's batting.
Markram. Oh, Markram is very a good player. But the wicket keeper, he has been hitting a lot of sixes. They have very good players. Very, very, very good players coming out of South Africa, and some good players to back up the squad. But the English, they have very good players as well. Archer is back. His first over he went for 17 in his first over when he came back, and after that he bowled the other 3 overs for about 10 runs. So he's back. So we're gonna see a lot of very good players. Come into the Caribbean and to America. So be prepared for some good cricket, tight cricket.
I am certainly looking forward to it, but I have to get into this, of course. This World Cup could make or break Sammy as a coach.
Well,
am I wrong in making that statement?
Sammy should not be the coach. Of course, you didn't ask that question. How in heaven's knows?
Sammy should not be the coach.
So he's not going to make or break him.
He is the man who is leading the West Indies in this World Cup.
Yeah, he's not going to make or break him. He's
of
going,
course,
he's
going
to be
fired.
relatively
young
he could be fired. He could be fired, but he will come back because he will then take his rightful position. Listen, there is something about Sammy that is totally wrong, and there's something about Sammy that is right. Sammy was from St. Lucia. And consistently, we have people who run in West Indies cricket. They were from St. Lucia. The president and the CEO were from St. Lucia. Sammy should not have captained or should not even be playing Test cricket. He was playing Test cricket, and not only that he was playing Test cricket, he was the captain of the Test team. He was the captain of all 3 teams, and he should not have been playing Test cricket. There's something about Sammy that's just right. That the lights are on Sammy, and everything's it has worked out. But we weren't successful. But Sammy had even when it ended, Sammy had another 2 years of captaincy of the West Indies, Even when it ended, he had a contract for 2 more years. So Sammy is now finished, he's finished. And who we have now? Another people from the islands.
Sammy's now finished, Sammy's now started.
No, Sammy is now finished as a player. We end up with people from the islands again as the people who run in West Indies cricket. So Sammy immediately has been chosen as the coach of the West Indies team. Immediately. He has no experience. You need to gain experience. Everybody, you went to a lower team and you learn. No. Sammy he was launched straight into the limelight. And the West Indies,
that's a success with St. Lucia in the CPL.
The West Indies team is not necessarily the best team in the world. So you need to give Sammy more time because you just can't summarily dismiss him if we were to fail.
No, hold on. What it is? You just said.
Yeah.
Sammy is going to be dismissed.
No, I'm saying if not because we lose the World Cup, you're going to fire him because he should not have been there in the first place. So you now have to leave him in the position to get the experience because you didn't let him get the experience before.
You think Sammy's philosophy, his cricketing philosophy, hasn't been made clear? Because I'll be quite honest with you, even I'm not so sure. I'm hoping you would tell me what his philosophy is. His cricketing philosophy.
Sammy is very simple. Sammy is very simple. He's a sort of motivator. He's an encourager. He's a nice fella. He's a nice fella. He treats people with respect, right? You have a flaw, he would work with you on your flaw. Sammy is a good person. But what coach you know that is very successful is a good person? Certainly not Manchester United, former Manchester United.
Oh God, let's not go there, man.
I'm saying, no, that's my team. That's my team. That's my team. So when you, I cycle back talk my team. But when you look at the successful people over time, they're not necessarily the best people in the world, but they get results. Sammy has been getting some results, but he is where he's not supposed to be.
Listen, we're out of time, but coming back to the Indian pace bowler, you're talking about Yadav or Malik, which one?
Neither of the two.
No, neither of the two? Those
Bumrah,
are the two.
Bumrah.
Oh, Jasprit Bumrah. Because Malik and Yadav right now are the two fastest, sir.
Yeah, but not as good. You see, I don't believe in fast.
You see, the thing is, I like Bumrah. Bumrah's swing, his pace, when coupled with his swing, very dangerous bowler. I always am fearful anytime I see him bowling. Always unfair.
Because he's going to get wickets and he's not going to go for a lot of runs. And that's what you want in a T20. Bumrah is the #1 fast bowler in the world.
For T20?
For T20.
Or on a whole.
And Test cricket. He's feared. He's not as quick as those guys who you want to say, but they're not as good as him. Good is good, We had a guy in Trinidad named Gabriel. He was fast. He wasn't good. And I said so openly and consistently. And he proved me right.
You know what you think with Bumrah too is that what I find so amazing, the amount of pace and swing he generates, and he takes such a short run-up.
It's not even a run-up, it's a something.
I don't know what it is.
It's a something he does, and he goes into a gallop.
He just generates pace from
pace. He is an unusual character. He's a very, very good player. Can't bat to save his life, can't feel, can't feel. But obviously, he's one of those guys, he's a thinker. He's obviously a bright guy. His parents were teachers and so on, and he has all his subjects, and he's a bright guy. So he's able to captain India. Anytime the captain moves away, he's the person to captain. So he's a thinker. So that's why he's able to bowl as well as he is, because he's able to get the ball where he wants to put the ball. And he knows what to do, when to do. So Bumrah is, to me, definitely one of the best fast bowlers we have in the world. And I say one of the best only because I was saying the best all the time, because he is. So he's obviously one of the best. So we're going to see not just guys hitting ball out of the stadium, which a lot of people will go for. I don't go for that. I go to see fielding. I go to see field placing. I'm going to see men bowling and what the ball likely to do. And of course, I go to see men, bat, because I was a batsman who could bowl a little bit. So, but I think we're going to see good cricket by and large. Afghanistan could give a surprise. I hope not to us, because we don't need that. But they have some
Afghanistan, I think, is one of the teams to look
I'm telling you, they have been in a war. Remember this, people, all of you who are listening and hearing. Once your country has been in a war, it develops a certain something inside of you. It's a kind of demon, or a devilish way you have that you fight to the end. So we were under Viv Richards and Clive Lloyd and them. And these guys, we had something that we were fighting against, which was slavery and coming up against the white masters and so on. We don't have that anymore. Viv Richards is gone. We're not playing it ice, green, and gold anymore. What we have now are guys who are playing for money. And that could never be the greatest motivator. Never, 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 never.
Lester, I'll see you in a month.
Yep.
I will see you in a month.
I'll be happy to come back.
And definitely, well, I mean, I'm hoping for the best for the West Indies.
Yeah,
I'm hoping the best. Yeah, we both are.
But we need to be realistic.
I know, I hear you. I hear you. So that's why I'm glad you came on this morning and you gave us your honest opinion.
I can't help myself.
Indeed. Lester, take care, my friend. See you in a month.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Manchester United is my team as well, by the way. So I'm still celebrating from Sunday. Small victories, big team we played. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us on AM Prime this morning, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Kunamasi used to attract tourists from across the region. Now the threat of Turkish bombing has been driving them away.
A lot of places were hit in the area, like Gala village. It's about an hour away from here.
We are 170 kilometers from the Turkish border. Local security forces have ordered residents not to comment on the situation. This man therefore prefers to remain anonymous.
We feel like the bombings are intensifying by the day. Killing innocent people is a crime. If Turkey comes and bombs us now and kills both of us, who is going to hold them accountable? No one.
The Turkish army has been targeting PKK positions, but has not spared civilians. Entire villages have emptied out in recent years. Kiwen says he has no choice other than to stay. 4 years ago, a Turkish strike destroyed his shop and left family members seriously wounded. He returns every day to work there despite his trauma.
My whole livelihood depends on that shop. I cannot just leave it. But if I could sell it for a good price, I would leave immediately. If I sold it, I would never come back to live or work here.
The district authorities estimate that at least 25% of the population has been displaced since 2017. They've not been receiving any compensation for financial losses nor damages for the injured until now.
It's very happy news. A letter from the Ministry of the Interior. They're asking for the list of people who have been injured in the bombings in order to compensate them.
The province has been bombed more in the last 5 months than in the whole of 2023. In mid-April, a farmer was killed. His family, now in another town, said they will never again return to their village.
He was never affiliated with the PKK, and he didn't even like the PKK. For his parents, it's too difficult to go back, because there are parts of his body that have still not been found there. Too many memories of him as well.
In Ruba's opinion, the land and its people have been too badly damaged. Even if the strikes ended, it will take time for the population to return to the abandoned villages.
Now, the French President and German Chancellor are both warning about the rise of the far right in Europe. The pair raising the alarm less than 2 weeks ahead of European parliamentary elections, where Macron's centrist coalition is trailing the far right. Scholz and Macron even penned an op-ed in the Financial Times yesterday and wrote that Europe is mortal.
Nous avons à choisir.
We have to choose our continent's future, now more than ever, because Europe is going through a decisive moment. Today in Europe, our peace, our prosperity, our democracy are threatened if we don't take action. And that's where Germany and France and all Europeans have an unprecedented responsibility for us and for future generations.
We now head to Sweden, where one of the main issues during the EU parliamentary campaign has been that of integration. Since the 1960s, Sweden has welcomed refugees fleeing war, but with the arrival of a central-right government in 2023, things have started to change. Many of the political parties are calling for curbs to immigration and a rethink to policies of integration. Clovis Casali reports.
The Stockholm suburb of Rinkeby is one of the poorest areas in Sweden. Over 80% of residents are first or second generation immigrants. This bridge was set to connect it with a richer neighborhood. But it's uncompleted, with the far-right campaigning against it for years.
What will happen with the real estate prices in that area if this bridge leads to criminality spillover there? What will happen to the kids who are vulnerable to robbery attempt?
Charlie Weimisch heads the Sweden Democrats list at the EU elections. His far-right party is not in government, but supports the centre-right coalition.
So what I would do is to move the whole asylum process, including refuge, outside European Union territory.
Mustafa Zatara was born in Rinkeby.
You see the high building there? There is my childhood.
This entrepreneur of Palestinian descent says nowadays there are fewer social schemes and public services. Meanwhile, some say the rise of violence in recent years shows that integration has failed in Rinkeby.
The right is going always further to the right of their racist opinions. Clearly, they are getting more supporters in the country. The people here just try to pull together and do the best they can in their situation.
He set up a program helping local youths become entrepreneurs like him.
I tell them Sweden is a land of possibility, so you've got to try to seize those opportunities and stay away from trouble.
Here in Sweden, voters will be electing 21 MEPs. Questions of integration and reforming immigration laws have been at the heart of the campaign. Apart from the Greens and the Left Party, there appears to be a consensus over the need to introduce tougher laws, but still with some differences.
Integration is currently a sensitive topic in Sweden. This Social Democrat MP for Stockholm is one of the few who agreed to answer our questions.
We must have policy to include everyone in the society. We have a big inequality when it comes to school, when it comes to how we live in Sweden. So we mean that the government must have a policy that, you know, the rich people, they can afford to pay taxes, to contribute to this equality for all.
Backed by the far right, the Swedish government has vowed to combat what it calls a shadow society. In other words, foreigners who aren't integrating.
Clovis Casali reporting there. Now, authorities in Papua New Guinea fear the outbreak of disease and a second landslide. This after a first landslide struck last week in remote highlands, resulting in a mass casualty disaster. Nearly 700 people have been confirmed dead and at least 2,000 others are buried under the rubble. UN officials are warning it's very unlikely anyone will be pulled out alive. Eliza Herbert reports.
In the Enga province, Papua New Guinea, villagers mourn a community lost. It's been several days since a landslide consumed the Yambali village in the early hours of Friday morning. While the chance of survivors has faded, still the people persist, hoping to recover the bodies of their loved ones.
We don't know where the bodies are buried, but we won't give up. We will keep going. The large volume of soil and rocks are making it too difficult for us, so we're using manual labor with spades and iron rods to dig. If we're lucky, we will find the bodies. Otherwise, they're buried forever.
Government agencies fear that more than 2,000 people were buried, a death toll far greater than the initial 670 estimated by the UN. These satellite images showed the scale of the disaster, the remoteness of the region, and the landslide covering an area the size of 3 or 4 football fields. Papua New Guinea is a South Pacific island nation off the northern coast of Australia. The landslide occurred in the remote north of the country in a village of at least 4,000 people, some 600 kilometres from the capital, Port Moresby, in the Enga province. The Papua New Guinea Defence Force and international aid organisations have been working to evacuate people and deliver food and water to the region. But their reports from the ground have described the situation as grim, with numerous challenges to relief efforts. Rocks are still falling, soil is still cracking, and water flowing beneath the debris has prompted fears that the ground will slide even further.
Now at least 22 people have died after powerful storms swept the south and central United States over Memorial Day weekend. The deaths were reported in at least 4 states. The storms left a wide trail of destruction and homes and businesses have been left without power. Forecasters had warned that the severe weather could shift to the east coast of the United States. North Korea's second spy satellite exploded shortly after liftoff on Monday. Video released by Seoul showed an explosion in the sky followed by flashes. Monday's rocket launch came hours after the leaders of South Korea, Japan and China met for their first trilateral in over 4 years. It was highly unusual for Pyongyang to take provocative actions when Beijing is engaging in high-level diplomacy. Sophie Lamott reports.
Barely visible to the naked eye, this is a North Korean rocket being launched into space, before exploding mid-air, illuminating the night sky. A failed attempt to deploy the country's second spy satellite, which nonetheless set alarm bells ringing in neighbouring Japan and South Korea.
The launch that was forced despite our repeated requests to stop is especially problematic for the safety of aircraft and ships, as well as for the protection of those in the affected region.
The launch took place amid a trilateral summit between Tokyo, Seoul and Beijing, the first of its kind in 5 years. Economic cooperation was the main item on the agenda, but the three countries also pledged to denuclearize the Korean peninsula, a provocation, according to Pyongyang. After several failures, North Korea successfully sent a spy satellite into orbit last November, much needed to monitor military activities of the US and South Korea in the region, according to Pyongyang. But for the UN, these satellites are used as a cover for testing long-range missile technology.
The so-called satellite launch that North Korea announced is a flagrant violation of Security Council resolutions, and the international community must respond decisively.
Seoul and the US have repeatedly accused the North of sending weapons to Moscow to use in its war in Ukraine, in return for technical assistance in its space and nuclear program.
Now, Pope Francis reportedly used a derogatory slur when joking about gay men. According to media reports, during a meeting with Italian bishops last week, the pontiff repeated his opposition to openly gay men joining the priesthood. He then joked about the number of gay men already in seminaries. Since becoming Pope, Francis has insisted on the importance of a church that's open to all. Last year, he even began allowing the blessing of gay couples in church. Now, an annual cheese rolling event took place in Gloucestershire. People from around the world flocked to Cooper's Hill for the race. The first person to the bottom wins the wheel of cheese, but the race often has some participants tumbling down, as you can see. Take a listen to some of the winners.
I've never broken a bone in general. I wasn't injured last time. I think I got a bruise last time, but that was about it. I got some scratches on my face. But that's to be expected when you're really rolling down the hill.
It's a little bit daunting. I just knew that I had to relax and go with it, not fight the hill.
Now, on to something lighter and a little different. Solange Mougin is with us in the studio for our Entre Nous segment, or Between Us. Solange, great to see you. Now, today you're focusing on neighborliness and whether the French see themselves as good neighbors. Why are we talking about this now?
Well, I thought I'd give those of us who are watching here in France, but also those abroad, a heads up and enough time to prepare a dish and some snacks for our neighbors. For this coming Friday, it is La Fête des Voisins, or Neighbors' Day, here in France, but also in some 30 countries where this tradition is or has been celebrated in the past 25 years. Sometimes it goes by other names like Fête de l'Immeuble, or Building Party, or EU Neighbors' Day, or Barbecue Party. Now, what is La Fête des Voisins? Well, quite simply, it is an annual event where des voisins, or neighbors in French, gather either in their building, in their backyards, in courtyards, or even on blocked off streets to have a drink and a bite to eat together and to get to know one another. Tens of millions of people take part in this every year in France and abroad as well. For the 20th anniversary, according to the organizer, 30 million people celebrated, and of them, 10 million were in France. Now, for many, it is more than just a moment to socialize.
Beyond being comfortable inside your apartment, you can also feel that way in the building. The goal is to feel at home. When we know each other, you feel less judged by your neighbor.
It's a party about solidarity and connection, getting normal contact back between people.
Solange, it's the 25th anniversary of the Fête des Voisins this year, but how did this idea come about?
Well, its origin story is actually quite remarkable. In 1999, a man living in the 17th arrondissement of Paris, Alphonse Périfond, he started an association with a group of neighbors called Paris d'Amis. There's a wordplay there. They did this because 2 years prior, in 97, a woman died in her apartment and no one knew about it for months. So the idea was born of creating an event where neighbors could get together and help one another. For its founders then and now, it is an event that continues to bear fruit, the fruits of solidarity, but also to combat a growing loneliness that people may have, and also the constraints of city living.
It's harder here. People do things differently. Apartments are smaller. People gather in common spaces. But everywhere, there's this enthusiasm to meet others.
I thought people wouldn't come. People here are self-centered, but actually it worked right away. I can't say it's getting better because it's always been great.
Solange, if you live here in France, neighbors seem pretty friendly. Every time you pass your neighbor, you say bonjour, unlike in the US where you probably ignore your neighbor. So why do we need to have events like these?
Well, the French, they see themselves as good neighbors, but they also have problems with their neighbors, which is, needless, obvious. A poll last year by YouGov found that 7 out of 10 French people regularly go and visit a neighbor. And 65% said that they have a good relationship with them, as Delano was describing. Now, especially they like the fact that they're discreet, helpful, and available for their neighbors. However, the same amount say that they have been bothered by their neighbors, with noise, intrusiveness, and rudeness being the top complaints. Now, the difficulty of getting along, especially because of noise, is not a new problem.
Careful with old Lady Rousseau. She doesn't like it when kids scream below her window. Madame Rousseau is a terror for kids. She chases them with her broom when they play in front of her.
We still don't know anyone, except for people we see in the elevator, and even then.
We live with the people upstairs and downstairs.
They drag their chairs at night and put music on.
Now, today, many of the same complaints exist, be it in cities, but also in the countryside. And last month, a bill passed Parliament that actually makes it harder for disgruntled neighbors to sue local farmers and actually sue anyone actually who has an economic activity and makes noise, be it their animals or machines. Now, this is on top of another law that already exists to protect natural animal sounds like the cock-a-doodle-doo of roosters and frogs mating calls as well. Now, this came after some highly publicized disputes over loud animals in the French countryside, but such cases are actually very rare. Noise complaints, though, in general, are not rare between neighbors. Today, you actually have to go through a mediation before suing, for example. But I don't want to focus on things breaking down between neighbors, as this is La Fête des Voisins. So I'm going to leave you with the positive. The YouGov poll I just spoke about last year found that 80% of neighbors say that they have helped someone, a neighbor before, and some 74% have become friends with a neighbor. And this is to boot, 23% say that they have actually fallen in love with a neighbor.
Wow.
You never know.
I wonder if they live in Paris. Thank you very much for that, Solange. Solange Mougin there telling us all about the Fête des Voisins, which is taking place this Friday, right?
Exactly.
Thank you very much for that, Solange. More news coming up with me. Stay with us.
5 o 6 meses, este puerto no había prácticamente nada, ninguna instalación.
In just 1 year, more than 14,000 migrants have landed in El Hierro.
Pues ha representado una deriva de sobreocupación que hemos tenido que improvisar.
Migrants who survived the journey at sea and reached the Canary Islands, but not always by choice.
No vinieron con agrado, o sea, el padre los obligó.
No entienden por qué no se pueden ir.
How long can El Hierro, a small island, realistically cope with this influx of people? Why has it become one of the new gateways for immigration to Europe? Join the search for answers in Reporters on France 24. Join Jeannie Godula for Paris Direct. Don't miss out on this comprehensive lunchtime news roundup.
Join me for Paris Direct every French lunchtime on France 24.
special event with weekly programs and special guests.
C'est la fête, le sport, et il faut que ça reste comme ça.
The opening of the Olympic Games is getting closer.
C'est bientôt, soyez prêts.
Destination Paris with France 24.
Worldview with Francois Picard. 2 hours of current affairs featuring the debate. Listen to the views that count on all the major international issues.
Join us for Worldview right here on France 24.
WESN.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Opposition leader says continued attack on Auditor General by the Finance Minister is a dangerous abuse of parliamentary privilege. Former Attorney General withdraws from appointment as appeal court judge. 2 men and a woman face extortion charges. Regionally, West Indies make historic clean sweep against South Africa on eve of T20 World Cricket Cup. Internationally, now for the details. Opposition leader Kamla Prasad-Bisasa says the targeted attack by Finance Minister and Economy Minister Colum Imbud on the character and independence of the Auditor General in Parliament on Friday constitutes a dangerous abuse of parliamentary privilege and borders on a breach of the sub judice standing order. Mrs. Prasad-Bisasa says the latest statement by Minister Imbud once more confirms that the investigation by a cabinet-appointed team recommended by him is a sham, since he has now pronounced on every facet of the purported investigation. She says when the report is completed, it will be submitted to Imbud, who continues to demonstrate his bias against the Auditor General. Therefore, its findings can effectively be dismissed as tainted and consequently declared null and void. Cabinet has appointed a team headed by retired Judge David Harris to probe a $2.6 billion revenue understatement in the Auditor General's report on the 2023 financial accounts. Former People's National Movement Attorney General John Jeremy is reported to have bailed out from the process of being judge appointed as a judge of the Court Appeal following objections and threats of resignations by several judges. Senior counsel Jeremy was one of 2 candidates shortlisted for the appointment as new appellate judges by the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. The other Justice Geoffrey Henderson, a former director of public prosecutions who also served for 8 years as a judge of the International Criminal Court at The Hague in the Netherlands. The appointments were scheduled to be made this week, but several judges are reported to have approached Chief Justice Ivo Archie to register objections. A 44-year-old security officer of Harmony Hall, San Fernando, a 40-year-old laborer, and a 33-year-old unemployed woman of Crown Trace Enterprise are expected to be charged today following their arrest on Friday for attempting to extort $600,000 from an elderly woman. Police were alerted by a Chaguanas bank that an elderly woman had come to withdraw the money from her account. When staff asked the reason for the large withdrawal, she said 2 people had approached her at her home early on Friday, claiming to be police officers. She told the bank staff the money demanded was to prevent prosecution of someone associated with her. Police conducted a sting operation along Chaguanas main road near Royal Bank of Canada, where the 3 were arrested. A 9mm Glock 19 handgun from the security officer along with 15 rounds of ammunition was seized. In regional news, West Indies cricket team concluded their T20 World Cup preparations with a commanding clean sweep of their 3-match series against South Africa. The men in maroon cruised to an 8-wicket win against Proteas in yesterday's final match played in Jamaica. West Indies scored 165 runs for the loss of just 2 wickets with 37 balls to spare in response to South Africa's 163 for 7 of their 20 overs. Guyanese leg spinner Gudesh Muti was adjudged player of the series. The full West Indies World Cup squad will begin assembling in Trinidad from today, where they will play Australia in a warm-up match at the Queen's Park Oval on Thursday, before heading to Guyana, where they will open their World Cup campaign against Papua New Guinea on Sunday. With that, City News on the Hour on WESN, I am Sira Ali. Thank you for watching.
WESN.
Leadership is a role, not a destination. It's a means, not an end. Bob Dylan, late great artist, he once said, well, ultimately you're going to have to serve somebody. Even the leader of the free world technically is a servant. Even the Lord and Savior himself technically was a servant. To some extent, you can't be a leader without followers. Their needs, their desires, their perspectives at times are so important that it blurs the lines of the relationship. But it is human nature, I guess you could say, to be narrow-minded, short-sighted, because all too often the career path is not about what one would do when one becomes a leader, but just to become a leader. And then what is not really considered. And rather than looking at it as a responsibility, it is seen as a privilege, something earned, to enjoy, to relish. How many of our leaders are reluctant to hold on to the responsibility to bear that burden? Oh, don't get me wrong, they will say, oh, it's a heavy burden to be, insert whatever title you want. But that almost, they say that at the end. They say that not necessarily at the beginning. It's almost as though they didn't necessarily fully comprehend what it would be like. What comes after becoming a leader was not really considered. And it should not be a surprise. Now, if you are well educated enough and experienced enough, and if you have expanded your horizons enough, constantly reading literature on leadership, on the experience of people that had to bear heavy responsibility, you should know. I guess maybe that's why we see consequences when most of our politicians are lawyers and they don't necessarily have much leadership experience beyond just winning elections. But there's a flip side to that, and just because you're a follower doesn't mean that you have to blindly obey. In some ways, being a follower at times could be more demanding, could have just as much intricacies and complexities as being a leader. At the end of the day, everybody is trying to manage the combined psychology of whatever collective you're dealing with. And it's not going to be easy. And while followers in some ways don't enjoy the perks of leadership, leaders don't enjoy the perks of followers. Because to some extent, as much as you could delegate responsibility onto others, at some point the responsibility will fall on the leader. Much more so than everybody else. And we should appreciate those who are willing to bear the responsibility and differentiate them from those who seek the benefits. Just one more aspect to consider when we look at the upcoming elections, particularly, of course, the general, but also even beyond that. Now, let's kick off today's Daily Review. The first story I want to highlight is one that I find quite intimidating. It's about an online scam. Usually an online scam would be relatively straightforward. They might target you, or they might do something to fish for information or to lure you out. But this one seems to be multi-layered because it combined a personalized attack with techniques that potentially might be used with random anonymous phishing attacks. A lady whose real name has not been revealed had business with immigration, her immigration office. And it seems as though knowledge of her applications for something from an immigration was specifically targeted by criminals who then inserted themselves in the process with fake communications, both apparently a fake website and text messages from SMS. So that is the traditional text message phone service, posing as immigration officials, basically saying, look, we tried to deliver a passport to you, something was wrong with the address, we needed to reconfirm the address, and then there's a fee, and then the fee required her to enter her credit card. Now, to some extent, the more complex an interaction is, generally speaking, the more legit it probably is. But they went so far that I am not entirely sure myself and others who have experience avoiding scammers might not be fooled. Apparently, for whatever reason, she got a website which had her information that apparently she filled out from immigration, although if it's personal information, there's a possibility they did not get it from the immigration office. She had to enter a credit card number in multiple times, and I don't think it is known with any certainty if that had any effect on the fraud, because multiple transactions were then found to be charged to a credit card. I believe it was within the same day. She herself, I think, contacted the bank once she realized that something was fishy when she was trying to enter credit card information in what seemingly is a fraudulent site. She tried to pay off this fine 4 times, and then by the 4th failure, she contacted the authorities. 4 purchases made in Dubai, the United States, and India. Although it's reported that the charges were in TT dollars. So I guess what happened was they pulled the money from her account, and, well, I'm not entirely sure how that works. If she made foreign purchases, how was it on the TT dollar side? But perhaps that might be a misrepresentation of the facts. It is believed that the scammers are local, not from another continent, another island region, etc. This is something to be considering. And the police have been warning about things like this. I don't know if they were warning about a scam quite this detailed, but it goes to show that it's going to be very difficult to educate people who are starting from scratch with online transactions awareness on what might be fake, what might be fraudulent, what might be a scam. Because apparently they really put work into this. It was, ironically, it wasn't a fake immigration division website, it was a fake TT Post website. Because TT Post was trying to make the delivery. So now the victim is wondering if her information was leaked by the immigration division or if it has something to do with TT Post. Although there is the third possibility that she claims that not a lot of people knew about her, that she was having dealings with immigration about her passport for a family member. But I don't know to what extent that would be guaranteed that no one on the outside would know. Scammers can do things like pick up hints from your social media, pick up hints from your trash, pick up hints depending if they have access to your search history. And they could obviously, if they could get hints of your travel plans or immigration plans or purchasing plans, they could use similar means to get your personal information. To what extent do we guard it safely? So this is one that I think is concerning. Everybody should be concerned. It goes back to what the media ambassadors say. To some extent, if you're worried about something, perhaps you should try to look into it more before you commit anything like online bank transfers, payments. You give anybody cash, you give out your credit card number. Maybe, I don't know, check with your bank, check with credit card center, double check, call. You could find an official number, call that number, call the office, go in. I myself like to go in to offices to deal with someone face to face. Sometimes it's not the most convenient thing to do. But to some extent, it could potentially be the safest thing to do. One of the things that makes this troubling is a report over the weekend, of course, where we know about the outstanding taxes of some businessmen, high-profile businessmen in the country. But an economist was warning about putting out people's information, including tax information, out into the public by the BIR in the effort to collect. And I guess you could say this scam, it's a layered thing. It wasn't just a fly-by-night. You call, you give a very flimsy story that once you have a little bit of experience, you'll know it's fake. No, this, I'm not entirely sure. People who have decent awareness might be caught by the scam. So it's something to just warn individuals. Anything to do with your financial information, yeah, you might feel silly being paranoid, but why not? Because it was a significant amount of money that this person, I believe, lost. But anyway, let's move on to another story. Something that I wanted to speak about yesterday, but didn't get a chance to. There were questions as to why Major Best, his charges, well, he was arrested, but ultimately wasn't charged. Apparently, the head of the Defense Force, Air Vice Marshal Darrell Daniel, he activated Major Best as a reservist in order for him to legally carry an automatic weapon. The reason that he gave was that it was for Major Best's self-protection. Now, to some extent, I'm not entirely sure how many law enforcement agents are authorized to carry automatic weapons in a personal capacity, one would imagine, off duty for their personal protection. Much less a reservist Now, from my limited understanding of the situation, what the head of the Defense Force did, the Air Vice Marshal did, is technically not illegal. But it's questionable. The thing is, one of the things I don't believe was given out to the public, one of the details, is the date of this supposed activation of major best status. How secure is that paper trail? And given the questions over the SSA, I think it's only fair that, and the Air Vice Marshal's involvement, it should be part of the investigation into the SSA. The question is, to what extent has that investigation stalled? The other question is, to what extent the words of the Prime Minister turn out to be ironically true. That there are too many gaps or holes or deficiencies in our laws and our systems and our policies and regulations to carry out certain investigations, and ultimately the system doesn't live up to its end of the bargain, and it works more for people who want to skirt the rules or even break the rules than it does for people trying to enforce the rules. Not saying that the Air Vice Marshal is a bad man, not saying that, you know, he is guilty and we should condemn him, but similar to police shootings, an investigation should be had for thoroughness. But that is not for me to say. Moving on to the next story. And speaking about laws not being adequate, a very famous senior police officer spoke to a foreign YouTuber. Video was uploaded Sunday. I have not seen the entire video. But I think there are a couple of key things that Senior Superintendent Roger Alexander has said. Now, you may like or you may dislike the individual, but at the end of the day, the words that he's saying, I think ultimately speaking, we should not discount just because of who the messenger is. One of the things he points out to is the fact that, yes, there are some limitations with the law, right? But one of the other things he's pointed out to is the fact that he is questioning, I guess you could say, the work habits or the motivations, or to some extent even the actual intention of some people to be police officers. And it's the age-old adage of a field officer questioning the commitment of those, and when I say field officer, it could be police, it could be military, it could be any sort of protective service, rescue, emergency service, questioning the commitment and the authenticity, I guess, the calling of those who would rather sit behind a desk. Now, there will be those who, at the end of the day, administration work, bureaucratic work is important for any institution to function. And there will be those who, look, that's what they're good at. They want to make a difference, so they volunteer to be a police officer, but to do administration work, to work administration in the fire service, etc., etc. With the military, logistics, administration and logistics becomes even more important because at times their operations become more complex, particularly when we have humanitarian missions send support personnel to places like Haiti whenever they have a natural disaster to deal with the aftermath of that. Logistics are very important. But at the end of the day, we have a crime problem, and the senior superintendent is calling out officers who do not engage with the public, go out on the streets, get a feel for what is really happening on the ground in order to then have a better understanding and foundation to start their investigations. To have that rapport with the public so that the public could identify them, could have their trust in them. He had an interesting point with regards to the fact that social media and personal electronic devices now potentially are kind of getting in the way of police officers on patrol devoting their full attention to observing what's going on. And he even called out the fact that, in his opinion, there are some officers who could essentially miss the warning signs of a crime about to be committed right in front of them, and they would be waiting on dispatch to tell them, oh, there's an emergency here, go see about it. But ultimately, he said something interesting. You have to love it. I guess you have to have that want to be a police officer. Now, of course, cynics, there's a bad side to that, but I won't go there. In theory, if you're a good police officer, you're not doing it for the money. And ironically, it's not as though it's a job that we want entry-level people at all positions, average or even below average people, to have a chance to get a paycheck. This is not that kind of job. This is not a job for the masses. This is not a job just for the sake of having a job. And perhaps what we're seeing here is an officer who, he's reached a point in his career where, ultimately speaking, the reprisals that could be done against him would be limited, and he feels the need to speak out. And you could say, well, it's easy for him to say and throw all sorts of criticisms at him. But I think, ultimately speaking, the results, or lack thereof, speak for themselves. And even if the murder rate doesn't get worse, other indicators are getting worse. And he himself has pointed out, there are times when I think we're kind of stretching things, we're reaching. It's a reach to say we might end up like Haiti. But the senior superintendent himself warned that the gang situation could reach that bad. And at the end of the day, it's not to say that, dealing with the root of the problem isn't important. But that will deal with the problem as it will exist tomorrow, as I said yesterday. But what the senior superintendent is calling out is how to treat with the current problems now. Just one aspect, but a big one. Because if the basic core foundation of anything is shaky. Anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the politics of the matter, some interesting implications coming out of all of the political maneuvering. A new party has, redeclared itself, an old new party, a new old party. For the 2025 elections, it's going to be on the scene. We'll speak about that and more. Stay tuned. Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance, He's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue. Well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Welcome back to Talk About, ladies and gentlemen. And I was supposed to be speaking with the PRO of the UNC today, but unfortunately, he couldn't make it. Busy time for them, I understand. But I begged, and I begged, and I begged. And I was able, he graced us with his presence, folks. He is here. And of course, I was speaking of the incredible, the insurmountable, the indefatigable, Mr. Keaton Shaw.
Good morning, Sean Michael.
Good morning.
Your intros, I must say, thank you very much. I do.
Yeah, all that came from the top. That was not planned at all. At all.
And just one minor correction, though. For the sake of journalistic purposes, you only begged once.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But good morning, Sean. It's good to be. I think the last time I was on Talking Points, I didn't have a bid.
That might be true. Yeah. I can't remember. Now, with that said, let's get deep into politics. It's something that you obviously have been following on AM Prime. You had, I believe, Russian Paré on this morning. The whole situation with the UNC, I mean, first of all, just in general, don't you find it very interesting that even when the PNM and the current administration has so many things going against it in the coming election, somehow the UNC has managed to make it interesting. Instead of being, because a two-term government that has a lot of controversies, one would think should be by default disadvantaged in a general election. And the opposition is saying, no, we want to make this race fair.
But honestly, perhaps the most, pertinent word is interesting. That's the only way to describe it. You see, the thing is, it's dominated headlines simply because in my opinion, the opposition party has been extremely weak. And it says it by the fact that you said the PNM government over the last two terms that they have held office has really, this country has declined. This country has really been decimated by poor governance. And it starts with governance, by the way, and it's just all around. I keep saying Trinidad and Tobago is such a beautiful place, but we as a people have ruined it. And that has not been helped by the systems that are in place. But the United National Congress is a story of its own. This party, this institution, this organization has imploded. It's been split. And Rushton Parry has now laid his intentions on the table. Not only does he, want to see the party restructured and reorganized, and to put it kindly, cleared out of those that are currently within the positions that are up for contention. What I find very interesting, Sean, is that he has indicated that he is willing and wanting to work with the opposition leader. In fact, throughout this entire campaign, even before it officially started, he has indicated this is not an attack against the opposition leader. This is a call for a restructuring of the institution that is the United National Congress.
But he has said that.
He has said that. But ultimately, I think he's saying that because he doesn't have a choice, simply because the position of political leader is not up for grabs. So he doesn't necessarily have a choice. But to say that, you asked him directly, do you think that Kamla Persaud-Bissessar is the right person to lead the party? And he's not giving you a direct response. But all that has been said on his part, or those who are on his slate, suggest that the bigger issue, not only is the national executive, but it seems as though Kamla Persaud-Bissessar is not the one leading the United National Congress. She's not the one actually making the decisions that a political leader should. The ones around her are the ones who have surrounded themselves around her, are the ones making such decisions.
Is it that, but correct me if I'm wrong, members of the state have directly said that the political leadership needs to change. Am I correct with that?
Political leadership.
Because we got messages of that
Political leadership, yes. Political leader, no.
No, we have not.
Right. Political leadership, again, the entire target, the entire campaign surrounds the national executive. That excludes the political leader of the United National Congress.
But I think, and maybe it was just my assumption, I was under the impression that at least initially, because I get you, since the political leader is technically not up for grabs, they kind of have to, they're in an awkward spot, right? You're not actually running against the political leader, and the political leader of a political party in our system has a lot of power, at least theoretically, in any political party we're speaking about. But they were calling for the political leader's position to be up for election as well, if I'm not mistaken.
At one point, we heard that, but the constitution, at least the constitution that is being followed right now for the United National Congress, which is available online, by the way, for those who would like to read, the political leader's position is not up for grabs until next year. But if you look at both slates, on Saturday, Rushton Parry, who's leading the state United Patriots, put forward the candidates for each position. And last night, officially, was the launch of the slate. That is the star team that is being unofficially led by Kamla Persaud-Bissessar.
Right, because technically she's not involved.
So if you take a look at both sides, and let's analyze it. First of all, Rushton Parry is going up for first deputy political leader. You've got Anita Haynes, and you've got Dr. Rai Ratbeer. And in those positions, of course, you have Julian John and Rudal Munilal, who are putting forward there. And I think Dave Tanko as well. If I'm not mistaken. No, I think Dave Tanko is going up for chairman. But the thing is, when Rushton Parry put forward his candidates, when it was presented, that particular slate, there were many people in Shrewsbury, including myself, wondering, who are these individuals? Who are these people?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I tried to get out of the conversation with Rushton Parry this morning. And the one thing that he kept saying is, these are individuals who are very well experienced, especially for the positions that they are going up for. And he spoke very much about the regional coordinators. But you see, Rushton Parry has to be very careful. If you're campaigning in the sense that these individuals who are very experienced, to me it sounds more of something for the star team, which has individuals who are seasoned in this. Of course, Rudal Munilal perhaps being the most, but this is the whole thing. When I try to get an understanding of exactly what it is that he plans to do for the party, what it is the team plans to bring to the party, I think the only thing that I'm really getting in terms of something concrete is him saying, well, we plan to make an all-inclusive party where those who have something valuable for national contribution can come forward and put forward their thoughts and ideas. But you see, sure, nothing's wrong with that. No, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's a fair point, and it's a point that he stressed on.
Well, you see, that is like a vision statement. But at the end of the day, I can't conduct business with just a vision statement, right? If you want to be very critical and cynical about it, it's word salad of buzzwords that doesn't actually tell me, you know, you have an ideal, right? So if I was to say, well, I will campaign on a platform of feeding every person in the country, that doesn't mean anything unless if I have a good plan on how I'm going to achieve food security. That's different.
Well, but this is the thing.
I just have a hope. He's just stating a wish.
So this is the thing. When you speak about the institution or the organization that is the United National Congress, I still am not satisfied with either side on what they're campaigning. Now, the campaign has officially just begun. 3 weeks because the election is due to be held on June 15th. So shifting across now to the star team for a moment, because again, if I take a look at United Patriots, there's very little that you can say about it. You have individuals who are very much well known in Anita Haynes-Alleyne. You have Dr. Rai Ragbear, who I would like to say is well known. The issue with Dr. Rai Ragbear is that he has not been very vocal during his time as a member of parliament. So this is where the relationship between the electorate is something to question. But according to Rushton Parry, right now, it's focusing more so on those who are members of the United National Congress. You have Kyle Taklal Singh, who, interesting individual, who's also going up as part of that particular slate, and the former chairman of the Couva Tabakit Regional Corporation, Tapara Tabakit Regional Corporation. Then you've got Larry Lawler. Larry Lawler, who ran under Rudal Munilal, who's now going up against Rudal Munilal. And then he also ran under Vasan Bharat. He's now once more under this. Face and name that you didn't see under this slate was that of Ramona Ramdial.
Okay.
You know, that was one that people were trying to figure out. Is she going to go up as an independent? Is she going to go up under a slate? I guess if she is going to go up, she's going to go up as an independent. But as I said, let's move forward now to the star team. And the star team have been very vocal. Very vocal. Kamla Prasad-Bisasa issued a 7-page letter over the weekend. Now, let me not say Kamla Prasad-Bisasa. The public relations officer of the United National Congress wrote a letter over the weekend, of which Kamla Prasad-Bisasa signed. Oh, I'm pretty certain.
Oh, I thought you were going to go to say the leadership, which may or may not include Kamla Prasad-Bisasa, wrote a letter.
No, she has... You've labelled Russian. You've labelled your own colleagues as PNMites. That's essentially what you've labelled them as. You label them as PNMites. Now, to me, I don't care whether or not you're a UNC or a PNM. I really don't care. I'm trying to figure out whether or not you are a candidate that is ideal, especially at this point, to lead Trinidad and Tobago. You could wear whatever color you want to. You could support whatever party you want to. I really don't care. It's who you are as a candidate and, you know, your reputation. And the thing that I always look for is integrity as well. But when I took a look at this 7-page letter, and I realized that Kamla, or if it was really Kamla wrote it, still don't know, tried to address the issues. The main thing that she kept suggesting was Rushton Parry was a mischief maker. She's really essentially followed all that has been spewed within the public domain. And she had to remind Rushton Parry that she is a valued member of the United National Congress who has been political leader of the party for 14 years and who has also been the consistent candidate chosen by the United National Congress to represent the parliamentary area of Sipario. And those are the points that she put forward. Then coming to this thing about being PNMites again, I kept thinking, you know, as a political leader, what nonsense is this? What are you really putting out here? What are you really trying to say? What I really want to know is, and speaking now to the incumbent, her position is not up for sale, up for sale is like if you get by, right? Her position is not up for contention, is everybody else in the party.
Yeah.
But you now speaking as though these people are being dissonant. And I'm here like...
Well, they have been called dissonants.
You know, you're the same political leader that has made the argument that Keith Rowley and his administration is turning Trinidad and Tobago into a dictatorship.
Right.
You then go and say that the United National Congress will always be democratic and everybody has democratic rights. But then when I take a look at your response as political leader to those who are challenging the national executive, I don't know. Is it? I get the impression that Kamla Persson-Bissessar, again, at least if she wrote the letter, at least she signed it, is
well, I would hope she at least read it before she signed it.
She's a bit nervous. She I get that impression. I'm getting the impression that Kamla feels as though
I wanted to ask you that.
It's not steady.
I wanted to ask you that, but before we do though, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems as though her response comes down to two things. I attack the dissidents with personal attacks. I don't say why they're bad. I don't say why they're technically wrong. Politically, you know, why any things that they put forward are incorrect.
Sean.
She just says they're bad, and then it's this age-old adage. If you have to give yourself props, is it real? Any leader that says, I am a good leader, look at me, I am the best leader.
But that's the thing.
Right? I am a good leader.
Kamla Persson-Bissessar has not even said. You see, this is the thing. This is where
you shouldn't be tooting your own horn. You should have people.
No, but I don't mind you tooting your own horn. You see,
not like that.
No, Sean, listen to me.
Okay, go ahead.
The mudslinging, you could expect that. This is possibly the one thing that I could say I appreciate about Russian Paris campaign. It's one of the very few things that I say I could appreciate. It's not the mudsling as but I don't expect anything different from Team Star, and I look at the individuals on it. I looked at this gentleman, Arnold Ram. I'm trying to figure out, what has Arnold Ram ever done as a member of parliament? Where has Arnold Ram even been? But that's not the point.
Isn't it sad that your expectations are so low? You're like, yes, it's almost a given, and I don't want to say you're excusing it, but you're basically saying, well, at this point, you just gotta accept that they're going to be bad.
My hopes are high, my expectations are low. And coming back to the point that you're making about tooting your own horn, I have no problem with anyone as a political leader tooting their horn. I have no problem with that. But that's exactly what Kamla Persson-Bissessar failed to do in anything that she's put forward. Why would you make Kamla Persson-Bissessar needs to make an argument, right? If I was leading her campaign, I'd say you need to make an argument and tell your membership, and by extension, nation, exactly what is it that you have achieved in 14 years as a political leader. Because
that's what makes it bad.
Up to last week, you need to understand, up to last week, you're getting a release from the United National Congress celebrating this day. 14 years ago on this day, Kamla Persson-Bissessar was elected as the first female Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. You get a whole list. I was like, you know what, that's all well and good. That's beyond that. Kamla Persson-Bissessar's time as Prime Minister saw a lot of national development. It also saw a lot, and when I say a lot of controversy. It says a lot that after a great amount of national development, that the nation still has not voted you back in because of the controversy surrounding you. It also speaks to how effective the PNM were as an opposition at that time. But Kamla has not done anything to justify her position as political leader.
Right, maybe I should have been clear. She's not tooting her own horn with, this is what I have accomplished. It's fine for a leader to point out what they accomplished that's tangible. But when a leader basically just, all they have to say is, I am a good leader. And that's it. There's no receipts, there's nothing to back that up. To me, that's usually the language of a bad leader, of a person who doesn't understand what it is to be a leader.
You see, the thing is, I also look at this. How many times within the last, it's now been 9 years, next year it'll be 10 years that Keith Rowley has been Prime Minister. How many times within these 9 years has Kamla actually contributed to any sort of questioning during the Prime Minister's questioning segment in Parliament?
That's a good point.
I think she's only asked it once, if so much, in these last 9 years. When you take a look at her and putting forward debates or arguments for any bills or any solutions, I don't get that. I don't get solutions. You see, what I'm hearing from her, how are we going to resolve crime? All right, okay, they have an issue with FGLs. We're going to put guns in every law-abiding citizen's hands, right? What was the famous thing? Load up the matic and empty the clip. And I'll raise it now, because when you speak about solutions and you speak about leadership, the United National Congress currently has been an extremely weak opposition. And unfortunately, even though she served as Prime Minister, Kamla Persson-Bissessar has done her time, and now she should retire and enjoy the rest of her life. That being said, Rushton Parry going to be deputy political leader, and even those on the rest of his slate, I can't say for certain that it's going to be any better. It may be a change of face, it may be a change of personalities, but thus far, I have not had any sort of instance in terms of this is what we need to do in terms of restructuring, this is what we need to do in terms of policy, this is the change that we need to see. All I'm getting is UNC weak, so therefore we're going up because we hope to reinvigorate the party. It's the best vehicle for national development in 2025.
Again, and essentially that's not necessarily you stating that, but you're basically paraphrasing what they're saying, which is a lot of buzzwords, not a lot of details. To accelerate the conversation a bit, Rushton Parry, what is his end goal? Is he just an engine for change, or is this the work? Because I've heard from others where he and some of the 5 dissidents, they might be letting their ambitions get the better of them. Is it that he's trying to make a play for being opposition leader? Because at the end of the day, whenever this comes up, I'm always going to look at how Keith Rowley handled his disagreements with Patrick Manning in the end, and to some extent, that might have positioned him, because when the outgoing political leader is so unpopular, you're not going to pick somebody close to him to be his successor. You're going to pick somebody that opposed him to be his successor. Is Rushton Parry trying to position himself to be the next political leader?
Of course. Of course, Rushton Parry is trying to position himself to be the next political leader of the United National Congress. You see, the thing is, you have no succession planning right now inside the United National Congress. As far as I'm concerned, every single one of those members on the opposition bench are glad to be on the opposition bench, you know.
Right.
The perks that go with being a member of parliament, whether you be in government or opposition, they're glad to be there, you know. When you take a look at Khadija Amin, for example, what has Khadija Amin contributed? She's shadow minister of local government. What has Khadija Amin even contributed to this entire debate or argument about local government reform or even improving local government services? It's the same thing I keep saying about Arnold Ram. It's the same thing I keep saying about Devendranath Tagore, about Ravi Rasiram, about all these individuals, about David Lee, for example. What have they done? Nothing I can say they've done, during their time as opposition. Now the same thing I can say, and I have to be fair, the same thing I could say about Rai Ragbir, for example, Rodney Charles, who's one of these individuals who's not going up, right? The more vocal ones, interestingly, have been people like Anita Haynes, Rushton Parry, and Dinesh Rambalia. They have been more vocal, but so as individuals, like being vocal does not necessarily mean actually getting something done. But it's the same thing that has been for Saddam Hussein, for example, who's going up under the STAR team. He has been very vocal. Rulal Muyal has been vocal to a certain extent.
My one thing is Dinesh Rambalia is one of the few opposition parliamentarians or parliamentarians where, when he's participating in debates, at the very least, he's not going to put his foot in his mouth and say something silly or foolish, which has been done by many of his peers in the House. While he himself is there, the dichotomy, the contrast between him and some of his peers is, I find somewhat almost hilarious that it exists. But at the end of the day, it could just be a political power play. But the name of the slate is United Patriots. So of course now one of the local newspapers, there may be connecting the dots, political analysts are connecting the dots, United Patriots, Patriotic Front. And one of the common things, now that you have said, Rushton Parry has said it, Michaela is reported of saying, well, I want to work with the political leader of the UNC. She just doesn't want to work with me. Both of them are saying that. I guess it could be pure speculation, but one could argue, if the United Patriots don't win, would they stay within UNC or would they try and break away? Because Michaela Pandey essentially has a party with no slate.
Okay, so Patriotic Front. Boy, Patriotic Front, just like most things in TNT, has been very disappointing, and I'll tell you why. I don't know what Michaela Pandey has been doing over the last few years. Unfortunately, she has also had to deal with her father's declining health. She also had to deal with his death. But, was it in 2019 that Michaela Pandey launched Patriotic Front?
It might,
right? It was in 2019.
Or wasn't it?
There was a launch, and in fact, I believe that Bastille Pandey was helping her to build a party.
Yes.
That being said,
it was launched on his birthday, I think.
That being said, Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. That's
for
right.
2020. All right, cool, fine. Fast forward between 2020 and 2024. What has happened with Michaela Pani? Nothing has happened. Right. Michaela Pani then comes out and says, listen, I have been trying to contact the opposition leader, but the opposition leader has not reciprocated. I don't hear from the opposition leader. I can't get through to the opposition leader. And I don't know why. Maybe the opposition leader's phone was on silent on those occasions. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, it begs the question again, is she really in charge behind the scenes?
Well, you know my opinion on that.
Because if she's not, then you insulate her as much as possible.
You know my opinion on that.
Yeah.
You know, I do not think that Kamla Persaud-Bissessar is really leading the party. I don't think she's the one in control. She's the one in charge. Beyond that, though, Michaela Pani, you see, the thing is, Michaela Pani will always have the privilege or the fortune of carrying her father's name.
Yes.
And therefore, with that also comes a following. But I also am getting the impression, again, that if Rushton Parry and Michaela Pani were to team up, and there is a high possibility that that may happen, it is going to be a threat to Kamla Persaud-Bissessar. In fact, I think that Kamla Persaud-Bissessar might even be concerned about such a partnership happening. TNT has a lot of young minds. TNT has a lot of individuals with whom I would like to think, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, what I've heard in terms of their contribution, could make a huge difference, a positive change in TNT if given the opportunity.
But a lot of them don't want to wade into these waters.
A lot of them don't necessarily want to because the waters have become so nasty. If you take a look at what we see from both sides, our level of debate, even within Parliament, is appalling.
I mean,
who want to be a part of that?
Just case in point, most politicians, what's the common complaint? You've more or less said it for a lot of them in the opposition side, but it applies to the government too. What have you done? And that implies to me that they're there not because of their ability to innovate and to think and to critically look at a situation and try and get a solution. They're there for political reliability, first and foremost.
So, we've spoken a lot about the United National Congress. We even brought Michaela Pani into this. And I do want to turn a bit to the People's National Movement. Because one has to understand, people in the public might not realize it, people in the public might not see it, but the PNM internally is split.
Yes.
The PNM internally is broken.
You should have seen Ballister House reopening.
Oh no, I wasn't there for the reopening, but I was there for the cocktail reception. I can't remember what we call it, meet and greet or something like that, right? And you could tell there is a split. You could tell there is division. But the People's National Movement don't show it.
Of course.
Right? They don't show it publicly anyway.
I mean, publicly you're watching them, you're kind of wondering what's in their mind because you could feel the split, but they're not doing anything.
But the thing is, I think we are going to see an internal election within the PM. Though it was held in January last year, I think. This is when Karen went up.
You think it's going to be soon?
I think it's going to be before next year's general election. Yeah. I am of the opinion that you're going to see a PNM internal election before general elections 2025.
Is this because they need to now look more closely at succession planning to kind of shore up that? Or to some extent, maybe it's so unclear what the probable succession planning is that they need to then get a mandate from the electorate members to figure out who should be?
Well, there are 2 points. One, yes, succession planning is definitely a part of the reason that you might have internal elections. You see, you have to take a look at the trends. In 2020, you had individuals, Faris Arawi, whose family is entrenched in the People's National Movement, has been there since the 2015 election. 2020 had individuals like Brian Manning coming in, for example.
Yeah.
But then when you see again in the local government election gone, when mayors, for example, which was the mayor of Point Fortin, unfortunately his name slips my mind right now, and the mayor of Port of Spain, Chinua, Manning. Aline, what I realize is that these were Manning's people.
Right.
These were people very, very close to Manning. And yes, Chinua, his worship, obviously he was Patrick Manning's nephew. We know that. But it signals something in the last local government election with the selection of mayors.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Family isn't always.
No,
There's a report. Michaela,
no.
Not Michaela. Kamala's sister may be wearing red instead of yellow right now.
Read that report better, boy. It's not Kamala's sister. It's Kamala's sister.
Oh, sister. Okay.
Right, Kamala's sister. Your former councillor who was apparently very close to Kamala. But anyway, the thing is with and this is, by the way, you see journalists have to do much better in terms of reporting. Many times headlines are very, very misleading, but well, what you have to see, boy, media need to sell somehow.
But it still stands that just because you are a former person in a former camp, things could move you out.
Yes, a job, for example, could move you out.
A job, yeah.
Or political philosophy might change. Again, whatever. In the case of the People's National Movement, I wonder if Dr. Keith Rowley is going to go for re-election in 2025. And the simple reason being is that he hinted in 2020 at his swearing-in ceremony that this would have been his last.
Yes.
Right? No, not as a swearing-in ceremony. On election night itself, he said it on the
And at
platform.
times he has hinted it, but then at other times he has hinted the reverse. But since then.
So you see, the PNM could do this transition on the inside very, very smoothly. Or at least one.
I don't know if smoothly.
This is what I said.
On the inside.
At least one might think. Because the public relations of dirty laundry, the PM does not necessarily do as the public relations of the United National Congress and their dirty laundry. Right? Now, you see, what you have to realize, good intentions in TNT don't win you an election, you know.
No, it doesn't.
Good intentions in Trinidad and Tobago does not win you an election. But the point of the PM...
Well, it got the NAR 1. In theory.
Good intentions? Anyway, you know, I'm wondering if Dr. Keith Rowley is going to go back up as political leader. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. Succession planning is a part of it. You see, let's face it, I said it at the start of this conversation, I'll say it again. Trinidad is in a bad place. We are in a mess. Who does not want to accept that? Go to the optometrist. A lot of them having sales. Go get your eyes checked out. We in a bad state. We in a really, really bad state. And the PNM has not helped this situation over the last 9 years. They really haven't. No, the thing is, they've kept us with our heads above the water, just our eyes though, because our nose below. We slowly drowning.
Oh, Lord.
And that is the thing. You have to wonder, in order for the PNM to win the next elections, two things must happen. One, the PNM need to change their party. They need to do some reorganization on the inside.
Yeah.
And two, the UNC need to continue fighting just like they are right now.
Well, I have a question. Quick, call me a bit. If Rowley goes, would he go as well or would he stay? Because his situation, his position, one would imagine, it's hard for him to be there under anybody else.
I thought you were a smart individual, boy. Call him input. I think the only reason why I call him input is still there is because of Dr. Keith Rowley.
Right, so then there's the follow-up, right?
Call him input, can't lead the PNM. That's what you're asking me, he cannot lead the PNM.
No, I'm not saying he's going to leave the PNM. I'm just saying I could see a reason why Dr. Keith Rowley will retain being the political leader and go up for another general election. So that in a similar situation with Kamala Pasabi-Sessa, he will be Prime Minister in name, but the acting Prime Minister will become input.
Listen, anyway, I could give you a list of people
he might not be able to
should not be political leader.
He might not be able to win the election as political leader, but if he could enjoy the authority and the job of it, why not? We got a taste of it when in the Prime Minister's last trip. Prime Minister left, and all of a sudden, a lot of political bacchanal happened, and then when he came back, you know, things settled down. But it seems as though the Prime Minister is ready to retire.
Who else are you going to put as acting Prime Minister? Think about it. Who else you're really going to put as acting Prime Minister? You're going to put Faris Arawi, who you demoted?
Yeah, but here's the problem.
Hold on. You're going to put Fitzgerald Hines, who can't even act as a Minister of National Security?
I understand that, Keaton. But that question, if that question is that severe of a problem, then who's going to succeed Keith Rowley anyway? So that's another reason why it might be difficult for the party to let Dr. Keith Rowley go. He himself might be looking at the potential successors.
There are two names that have been touted as potential leaders, or the next potential leaders of the People's National Movement. this is not my opinion. This is what has been told. This is what has been said on inner circles. The two are Penelope Beckles.
Right, yes.
And, or Dr. Amy Brown. Those are the two individuals.
Those are the two?
Those are the two individuals. Because from what I heard, Stuart Young's father wants Stuart Young to be political leader of the People's National Movement. I don't know if Stuart Young wants to be it.
Will the country elect a Chinese man as political leader?
You know, that's
right
a very
now?
good question. Would the country,
We have no idea.
Would the country elect a white man as a political leader? I'm asking those questions because as much as people out there may want to deny it, let's be real. You see, skin color still have a role to play in politics here in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't understand why people like to shy away from that. We have not cut out our thinking as yet. You're absolutely right. You remember what I said? I wonder if I, in my lifetime, will ever see an Indian leading the People's National Movement and an Afro-Trinidadian leading the United National Congress. I wonder if I'll see it. But I think Faris Harari wants it. He ain't going to get it.
Of course, yeah.
And I think Foster Cummings.
Yes.
Foster Cummings wants it as well. That'll be interesting, though, Foster Cummings.
I do feel most of those names, and this is just speculation, and I open the show saying a lot of people, they want to be a leader. But once they want the position, they don't really want the role of leader. They don't want the responsibility. They want the position, the perks.
Just remember though, Foster Cummings has one benefit. He has the youth. As Minister of National of Youth Development and National Service, he has the young people. And in all fairness to him,
his ministry has been
in all fairness to him, his ministry has been doing a lot. But anyway, Sean, I think we have done enough thus far.
It's never enough, Peter. It's never enough.
I think we should take a break, and I think when we return, we should open up the phone lines.
All right.
But that's my opinion.
Let's go.
Okay, let's go. We're outspoken this morning.
I actually found the energy was low.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing. So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to Steph. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have two of the three species of anteaters right here.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
We are back.
It's been a while. Welcome back, folks. We open up the phone lines now. We want to hear from you, the viewer. Of course, the big elephant in the room is splitting votes. Could that happen when it was the PDP considering expanding its reach into Trinidad? That was one of the things on the table, but that blew up before it could even begin with regards to wesn Duke and his differences of opinions with various public persons. But of course now, the flip side is also true. You get a party that seems to be from the UNC or members that traditionally were UNC, and now there's concern that their actions could cause votes to be split among that voter base, like Ethan pointed out, split nationally among racial lines, our voter bases. But we have a call on the line. Is it Diego Martin on the line?
Good morning, Diego Martin. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Small and Mr. Shah. I ain't talking nothing about parties.
Why not? Why not? Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll come back to it after.
Okay.
I want to talk about the governance of Trinidad and Tobago. That is what we have to focus on. And you see the Auditor General, a lot of people don't understand what the Auditor General purpose is. And you're seeing it. I believe for the first time, we will have a clear understanding what has happened to the last 8 years in terms of the financial position of the country. Case in point, the $26 million that has disappeared and apparently cannot be retrieved. What that tells us, the procurement of that contract was flawed. Why did they not implement legislation as is? If they had done that, this will not have happened. And this is the same playbook that, you remember, the bamboo company with a professor named Julian? That was frittered away to 30 million. You remember the Korea company that was out of Early Childhood Center? Money disappeared. And I am hearing that they do due diligence. They apparently doesn't understand what is due diligence and what is vendor validation. And I am sure my mind is telling me they know where that money gone, to which it's gone to, and who have.
Caller, are you still with us?
It had certain high government officials had companies in Hong Kong and not calling in. What happened to the Bridgemans? We didn't find out nothing. And there is an opaque.
Caller, you're breaking up.
Okay, caller. All right. I think we've lost the caller. I am sorry. I'm not so sure what happened there. I assume it's the connection being poor. But please, of course, call back into the program later on and make your point if you wish to do so. But the phone line's open, ladies and gentlemen. You could call in on the program and join us for the discussion this morning. Sean Michael Small, you know, the mid-year budget review is due to be laid sometime next week.
Yes.
So therefore, we'll have that conversation next week. Let's take this caller from St. James. Good morning, caller from St. James.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Boy, I never election could have all kind of bacchanal thing. I remember with Pandey, when they had some sort of issue and they say Pandey take all their party voters that ID cards, apparently they hide all that, he hide that, and some listings of some. I heard that many years ago, and but the point about it is he was voted out, and Kamala won the local election. So I find, you know, that could happen again. Not so, gentlemen. You don't think so?
It's possible. Of
course,
it's possible. Although I really don't believe that.
Yeah.
But I think that the UNC members and them, I think that the foresight is limited, because I believe after this election, if Kamala do not win, that's it. I believe she going to throw in the towel. That is my belief. If she does not succeed, you know. And so I you know, all these members, you know, I mean, she really makes some issues. Members singing for the other side, and but the thing is, this thing about the Auditor General, all this I read on the news this morning about so much can be accounted for. What the hell going on in this place?
Yep.
What going on? But this is, You know, like when they approve, look, they say when you're having functions, $1 million or less, you didn't need to get approval anymore from Parliament. Recently, they passed that. So, like, they believe, well, you don't have to give all the document and account for everything to the Auditor General. What would think again? Big, smart, bright, educated, experienced, intelligent people doing this? My God. Anyway, gentlemen, you all have a blessed, beautiful day. Love you all.
Have a good day, caller. Thanks very much.
The thing is, to the previous caller's point with regards to, due diligence and due process, government institutions at times, and it's not just us, when you follow defense spending in America, some of the decisions that they make on procurement and the results that you get. So it's, understandably, it's a complicated process. But the problem with complicated processes like this that deal with this amount of money, it's easy for things in bad faith to happen, and I'll just say that.
I wonder if the Auditor General's report has taught people that intelligence cannot be bought.
Well,
I hope people understand that.
That's a layered sentence there.
Intelligence cannot be bought. So, call on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Yes, I just called to give my 2 bits inside here. So, concerning the UNC internal affairs and so on, I think after the NATEC elections, I think everything is going to fall back into place, and people are going to see what is what, and they're going to do what they have to do. It's unfortunate that after these 5 of them who went up against the executive, and there are some good people there that should be in the party, and they should, think. But you see, when these things happen, people, they lose their trust in you. And if that continues, they might be taken out of the party after if they lose. Now, if they lose, when they lose. I don't see them having any chance of winning any thing here. And after watching that crowd last night, boy, I tell you, although the crowd doesn't really give you too much of a thing, but it's membership.
Yeah.
So they didn't put a gun by anybody here and bring them there. So that tells you something.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so that's my 2 bits.
Thank you very much, caller. Have a good day.
Well, it's an interesting implication that already raised. They might have popular support, but not necessarily with any membership who could vote and who might participate in this internal election. But what would happen? I actually think the most likely outcome is, if they're brave enough and if this makes sense for them, I'm not entirely sure, the United Patriots actually join the Patriotic Front.
We are waiting to see that on June 15th or June 16th. The elections are on June 15th. What I would like to see as well is in terms of the voter turnout. Like for a general election or even a local government election, they always speak about those who are eligible to vote and those who actually came out to vote.
Yes,
you always get
the
that.
voter turnout, yeah.
And I'd like to know that in terms of the UNC membership, those who are eligible to vote, as in the number of members within the United National Congress, and those who actually came out on election day. Listen,
the last one, I'm under the impression that it was low.
Right, but you see, the thing is that high, low, medium, slight, roast, wherever you want to put it. Whoever wins the election wins the election. It could be Teamster, it could be United Patriots. It doesn't matter. But the reason why I ask that is because how many members of the United National Congress are still actually feeling that level of confidence within their own party? You see, even in the last local government election, I think people need to understand, I don't think Kamla Prasad-Biswas is even getting the support in terms of financiers as she once did. I think a lot of financiers are probably also pulling out. Someone I was having a conversation with who was close to the campaign said that the reason why, or at least one of the reasons why, and there was a big part, that Gary Griffith and the NTA were pulled in to have a strategic alliance.
Right.
In quote a partnership, they call it a strategic alliance, is because the United National Congress didn't have the financial backing to run a full campaign for local government elections. They didn't have the full backing. So all of those are things that you have to bear in mind.
Well, ironically, this is where one of the theories that you have, it kind of goes hand in hand with what you just said. Or rather, this could be the consequence of one of the theories that you've had. If the opposition is happy being in the opposition, as a financier, what's the point of me backing the opposition that is going to be stagnant? They're not going to be able to help me with anything. And yes, there's the unethical help me with anything, but then there's to some extent also the ethical help me with anything. I have an issue, there's issues with legislation that's unclear, ease of doing business. I'm sure there would be some financiers whose needs and asks are technically above board. You know, clean up this ease of doing business matter here to help the country now, because it's hitting me and it's hitting people I know in various different fields. But my point is, again, what's the point financially of anybody? Any sort of campaign contributions, if the losing horse wants to be the losing horse, because you've said the opposition seems to be quite happy just having participation trophies. We're here in the House, we're here in the Senate. We don't need to be government, we still enjoy perks.
Boy, what a wonderful country we live in, huh? You see things like, you know, over time, I haven't been here for about a month on Talking Points. And I've been just doing a lot of observing. I've been talking to a lot of people on the street. And the thing is, a lot of people are frustrated, a lot of people are fed up, a lot of people are saying it doesn't even make sense me voting what I'm voting for. And then a few people who say, boy, I'm tired, I'm fed up, and this and that, and nothing won't change. If you speak to them about their satisfaction in terms of either political party, they still have their allegiances. I mean, they're again disappointed and let down, but they still have their allegiances. They're still very much loyal to one political party. I see nothing wrong with that. But how do you expect this country to make any sort of change if people themselves don't change their mindsets? The first thing that needs to happen in TNT is a paradigm shift. The very, very first thing that needs to happen in TNT is a paradigm shift.
The question is, what will be the chicken and the egg to come first in that situation? Do we need the politicians to show the population something to cause a change, or does the population need to really radically change their voting patterns, right? Because I don't think we're going to get a situation like Tobago where the number 2 party, whichever one it is going to disintegrate and something new could just easily take its place and give the people a ready-made alternative to the incumbent sitting administration. It's going to be messy to get an alternative political entity, political anything, even within the parties to change those parties. So do the voters have to change? Because it seems as though more and more they feel disenfranchised. What's the point of me voting? And the less engaged they are, the less likely change will become from that end of the equation.
Hey, when you speak about political alternatives, in Tobago, you've got 3 main parties right now. I would even argue 2. I would say TPP and PNM Tobago Council.
Right.
I can't even say...
Yeah, it's interesting you actually specifically point that out as a separate party.
I can't even say the PDP anymore. The PDP has become a one-man party. All right?
Those tend to not last.
Same thing that happened with Philip Alexander and the PDP. In fact, the PDP quiet these days, boy. Same thing is happening with NT and Gary Griffith. In fact, so much so, NT real quiet these days, boy. I don't know if it's because Gary Griffith was out of the country, whether or not that says that, because I not hear the party, nothing happening. You know, but in Tobago, you still have other parties as well. Those are the 2 main parties. So when you take a look at political alternatives, it's kind of similar to what we have in Trinidad right now. You either have the opposition or have the incumbent. Here in TNT, you had political parties that were churning out. Look at Hope, for example. What's going on with Hope?
I think they're stagnated.
What's happened to Hope?
I think they're stagnated.
Hope, this is what I said. You know, I took a look at when Hope had their launch, and I took a look at some of the individuals, and I said, you know, it's ironic that the name is Hope, because a lot of people are going to see it as being hopeless, right? They're campaigning on being hopeful. What has happened to Hope, right? You see, the thing is, you might say Sean and I might be in the best position to get an answer to that question. Nah, why not? I don't know what's going on with Hope. I wish somebody would let us know what's going on with Hope. Then Hope had an alliance with the Congress of the People, the COP.
Yes.
Right?
But the COP is even less of an entity than Hope.
I don't know, boy. I even forgot COP existed.
Because one of my issues with any party that is not the incumbent parties need to understand urgency. You do never have enough time. You never have enough time. And what the irony when I say that is, not only do I never get a sense of urgency, but also they want to come onto the scene relatively last minute to a general election, right? You can't build up any sort of support. You can't build up your slate. Then you have poor results in the election. So then things bust and it falls apart.
And then, by the way, you're speaking about urgency, and this is what I said. Michaela Panu launched a party in 2019, Patriotic Front. Nothing happened since then. And strategically, now is the best time for Michaela to relaunch. Now is the best time for Michaela to relaunch.
But she doesn't have a slate.
Now is the best time for it to put. But this is the thing. We're speaking about Patriotic Front. Is Patriotic Front one of those one-man parties again, or one-woman parties in this particular instance? What is happening there? We don't know whether or not she has a slate.
Do you think?
You have to understand, there may be a lot happening behind closed doors.
Maybe, but she's already behind time because it's less than a year to go. I would prefer that any third party start their election campaign, not election campaign per se, but the whole process of building themselves up to then contest a general election, not a year before the general election, as they almost all of them seem to want to do, but, you know, after a general election to give yourself the maximum time.
So, last but not least, a new political party was launched a week or two ago.
Oh, yes.
Kizell Jackson launched a political...
I almost forgot. You know, the name of a party is shared with political parties. I can't remember which African country. I just wonder if she found it in Google.
I actually forgot the name of...
I think it's APP.
Okay, great. What does APP stand for? Not trying to be disrespectful, I genuinely forgot.
I'm looking up again.
Okay, thank you very much. So Kizell Jackson launched her political party, and I'm curious to see what a campaign, or what she's going to campaign, or what her campaign is even going to look like. Does, again...
All People's Party.
Oh, the All People's Party.
All People's Party, yes.
Nice name.
Yes, I mean, you know, you literally just transpose the song All People's Party, and that's more or less it there. But I don't know if that inspires a lot of confidence on the policy front.
Did they have a song called All People's Party?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh, okay,
you could take Big People's Party and flip it.
Right, thank you very much.
Makes it easy.
Yeah, but the thing is that Kizell Jackson, again, nothing wrong with putting your hat in the ring and you're forming your own political party.
What makes her qualified to be a political
No,
leader?
it's not that. I just want to know, right? Who is on this All People's Party? Is it just Kizell Jackson alone? I'm kind of tired of this one-man show thing, you know, right?
I mean, it didn't work in Tobago, so I'm wondering why they thought it would work here. It's never worked in Trinidad. But
because Watson Duke initially was a one-man party. It built into something.
But there was no opposition party. So to some extent, the PDP's rise is unique. Everything about the PDP and the TPP is very unique and can't be replicated in Trinidad right now unless the UNC doesn't just have to fracture. Literally, it has to go away. And I don't think anything that drastic could happen. That's not realistic at all. There's no reason for that party to just disappear to the extent that the TOP or any other opposition party in Tobago crumbled and disappeared.
Well,
because the leadership from their predecessors in that second slot or now first slot, right? They were not part of the PDP. So is all of the UNC plus Michaela and Hope and everybody else that's been there, they're going to just disappear? I don't think so.
When all is said and done, as we are concluding this particular debate this morning, I have to once more reiterate the point. We as a nation, and you have to accept it, because that is the first step to trying to do something about it, trying to deal with it. We are in a mess, Sean.
Okay.
We are in the
I try
pits.
not to think about it, Keith.
You see, this is the thing. You don't want to think about it because it is depressing. Of course it is depressing. I mean, but at the end of the day...
it's no joke.
Things are are really bad, and we are very fortunate and blessed in so many instances. But as I said, TNT was sweet. TNT can be sweet. It's we as a people that have a role.
We are complacent, and I think one of the signs of it. Have you seen how many new cars? When I say new cars, whether foreign use or brand new, are on the road? We went from PEE and went through PEF and are now into PEG just on license plates. And it only took a couple of months. In an economy that is not so well, with a private sector that's not doing so well, with a government that does not have money to throw around, apparently there are people whose lives are relatively fine. And my fear is it's so fine, it's fine enough that they're complacent and they just, I don't want to be involved, I don't want to hear nothing about this. You all sort it out.
Well, one, people are trying to survive, people are trying to live. But poverty is very real. And the people purchasing new cars, you have many people who are very fortunate, who are in a position, and it's few people in TNT who who could afford to purchase these new cars. I realize now banks, and this is new to me, banks are giving car loans for as long as 8 years. Because those are banks adapting and evolving to realize, hold up, people
this
can't...
This is the market.
Yeah, this is the market. People can't repay for a car. You're going to take 8 years to pay on a vehicle. But that's what's happening now. You have to understand, poverty is very, very much real in TNT. And this, as I said, the sooner we accept that this is the situation that we're in. I mean, we didn't even talk about crime this morning, because what new am I going to say about crime?
Yeah.
What different am I going to contribute to this conversation about crime?
Actually,
Yeah?
I mean, poverty is one thing, but I think what's more, the whole Auditor General situation and what the implications of the information in the report, I don't know to what extent it's going to actually lead to anything concrete. But then when you combine that with crime, to me, that is bad enough to really have me worried, because other things around those two things have to also be bad for it to get to this point. So low it is. It's not just policing. Other things around crime has to be really bad for crime to get this bad.
And you know what? We ain't riot yet. Ladies and gentlemen,
let me kick.
That is my contribution. Thank you very much for having me on the program.
You're here, and you're here.
Yes, I'm here, and I'm here.
Yes.
And I'm here too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
It's good to have you here.
Good, yes. Good to have here too as well.
Yes.
See you again very soon, Sean.
Really?
I hope so.
I mean, folks.
I'm actually, am I sounding like all the previous political parties making a promise that I can't necessarily keep?
Probably, yes.
Okay,
the irony is not lost on me.
I will try and be very different and set an example.
All right, with that said, thanks to the callers this morning. I hope, no pun intended, that everyone out there would be more engaged in the politics of the land. If we want to see change at the end of the day, will it come from the politician side? Will it come from the voter side? At the very least, we should not take things for granted and do what we have to do. Keaton?
Today is a good day to have a good day.
Remember,
Goodbye, folks.
Our allegiance to the Republic. Bye-bye.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No.
Let's go to the last part.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim, or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
The landslide covering an area the size of 3 or 4 football fields. Papua New Guinea is a South Pacific island nation off the northern coast of Australia. The landslide occurred in the remote north of the country in a village of at least 4,000 people, some 600 kilometres from the capital Port Moresby in the Enga province. The Papua New Guinea Defence Force and international aid organisations have been working to evacuate people and deliver food and water to the region. But their reports from the ground have described the situation as grim, with numerous challenges to relief efforts. Rocks are still falling, soil is still cracking, and water flowing beneath the debris has prompted fears that the ground will slide even further.
Well, it's time now for something rather different on the programme and something a little lighter. Solange Mougin is with us here in the studio for the Entre Nous segment, Solange. And you're going to talk to us today about French neighbourliness. Apparently, you tell me this is a word, and whether French people see themselves as good neighbours. First of all, tell us why we're talking about this issue at all today.
Well, I thought I would give those of us watching here in France, but also those abroad, a heads up and enough time to prepare a dish or some snacks for their neighbors. For this coming Friday, it's La Fête des Voisins, or Neighbors' Day, here in France, but also in some 30 countries where this tradition is.